Good morning. Hi. Hello, everyone. It's lovely to see you back. Oh, wow. Some of you have seriously woken up. As you can hear, I have a new voice today, powered by last night's party. I do hope that you can all hear me loud and clear, and I can see some people nodding. So it is my pleasure to welcome you to the second and the last day of our conference. For those of you who don't know, I'm Tamara. I will be your host for today, as we go through the topics of co-working, digital nomadism, the future of work, community, and other related topics. I will now remind you that as we are in Montenegro and there is a mask mandate here, we are all required to be wearing face coverings. That means a mask covering your mouth and your nose unless you're a speaker on stage. Please keep your masks on indoors and try to maintain a safe physical distance from other people. One of the reasons that we got to do this conference in person is that we are going to be following this protocol, so let's just all make sure to do that today. It is my pleasure now to do a quick recap of yesterday's program, and we will do that by watching a little video to see what we had happen yesterday. We didn't get a video of last night's party, but maybe that's better. Once again, today we will be covering topics that are similar to those of yesterday, but we're going to dive deeper into a couple other topics as well. So let's just go over what we had on the program. Yesterday, we started with Alex's keynote, where he spoke about diversity and the importance of diversity in building communities. Then we had a coffee break powered by Salto. We're going to have one today as well. Then we had a panel speaking about our region being a new hotspot for digital nomads. After that, Tanya and I, we presented what we are working on with the two-code response for attracting digital nomads. Then we heard the wonderful best practice example from Dubrovnik, from the deputy mayor, and from the tourist organization. And then we ended up with a panel about digital nomads who have been staying in the region and how they see our region. Today, our program will be similar to what you all have on the back of your tags, but we do have some changes. So we will start off with Milan Babic presenting this research that they've done recently, and then we're going to continue hearing from Kate. Unfortunately, Christian, who is supposed to be joining her today, is not here, so Kate will be doing the presentation by herself. After that, we're going to be moving on to the panel speaking about co-working in the pandemic. After our coffee break powered by Salto Systems, we're going to hear from Tomislav speaking about his experience working remotely. And then we're going to hear from the regional media speaking about remote working and practice and how the digital media adapted to this. Unfortunately, our speaker, Chelsea, who's supposed to be speaking after this panel, could not be with us today. So what we're going to do is we're going to hear from Edo Sadikovic before that, and then after the panel, and then we're going to be splitting for our lunch and then departure. So I invite everyone to use this time wisely to make sure that if there's someone that you haven't spoken to yet, do approach them, use this opportunity to connect. We have many wonderful people coming from not only the region, but also internationally. So enough of me speaking. I have the pleasure of announcing our first talk of the day. Milan Babic will be presenting, and Milan Babic is a program manager in Delhi, a space for creative activity in Niš, Serbia. And he's done some, well, his team has done some research that we'll get to hear about right now. So Milan, without further ado, the stage is yours.
Hope that you hear me. Okay, no, it's fine. Hello everybody, like Tamara mentioned, my name is Milan Babic and I am program manager of the Delhi co-working space from the city of Niš, South Serbia. I'm very happy for the opportunity to represent the research that we've done in the co-working community and to give a short overview about co-working scene in Western Balkans area. So, let's start. Delhi Space is founded before 6 actually year in the city of Niš, and in that moment it was the first co-working space in southern Serbia. Actually it was first co-working space found in southern from the Belgrade, which is capital of the Serbia, and it was a tricky moment to create some kind of co-working space in that area because people usually didn't know what co-working actually is. But we keep our fight for the digital nomads, for the innovations, and in 2017 we decided to create the research process and to approach to the all co-working spaces in the Serbia in that moment. We continue to do that every year, so today I will represent you our 5th research of the co-working community of the Serbia and the first research of the co-working community of the Western Balkans, including Croatia, and also I need to mention that before 2 or 3 years, because I don't know, sometimes I don't count the year when COVID was, we done research in the UK co-working community. So, okay, we create this presentation in 3 areas. We will talk about Western Balkans co-working community research, where we'll represent some results, some information that we got from the survey. The second one will be COVID and co-working, how pandemic hit the co-working community, especially in Serbia, what was the results, and at the end we will talk about today's moment. We will share the ideas, we'll share some information, what new is happening now in co-working community, and how we can participate in that process. So let's start first with the number of co-working space. Before everything, I need to mention that our research is based on the informations from the few of the most important, let's say, websites and portals for the digital nomads, co-workers and freelancers like Coworking and others, and also for our intern database that we have in the past 5 years. So if you search, maybe you will find few different numbers. The reason why we have this number is we just look at co-working spaces and co-working community. So if there is some coffee shop who is laptop friendly, we didn't got the information from them because that's not co-working. So this is the based co-working research. Okay, so Macedonia have 10 co-working spaces right now, Montenegro 11, Albania 13, Bosnia and Herzegovina 15, Croatia 28, and Serbia 41. Those co-working spaces are operational, they work all the time, and now you can go there and work in there. So this is a map. We try to put a pin on the every single location where co-working is open and working all the time. So you can see there is also Nikšić, there is Delhi space in Niš, Belgrade, Zagreb also, Zadar, and Mostara and Tuzla. When we talk about in-deep research, we have a lot of experience in this process. We started in 2017, and number of co-working which fulfill research, who give us information, growth all the time until the year of the pandemic. That was 2020. In that moment, a lot of the spaces closed their doors for the tenants, for the co-workers. We see that today's situation is going back on the pre-pandemic period, so we hope that in the next period everything will come back. The COVID pandemic hit really hard the co-working community. Maybe besides tourism sector, it was one of the most affected community. When I say affected, I don't mean that people have infection. I think that it had a problem to work, and especially because there was no digital nomads, because there was no traveling. Lot of spaces whose concept was on that side closed their door. Most co-working spaces are located in Belgrade in Serbia, 21 of them. It's more than a half, 51%. The same situation is in all countries in region. For example, in Zagreb, in Croatia, the most spaces are in Zagreb. The most interesting situation actually is Bosnia and Herzegovina, because around 17% of the spaces are from Sarajevo and Banja Luka, and that are the most largest city in this country. So all information are similar for the region because we have similar community. So the next step of the in-depth research that we done is split in three areas. First is people, because without people, without co-workers, without digital nomads, there is no co-working spaces. They're useless, they're empty, and we saw that in the COVID pandemic. The second part is community. That was the most hit area of the co-working in the past year, because there was no events, there were no live events, there was live streaming, of course, and Zoom meetings, but this is really important because usually people are coming to co-working through the community. So that's one of the ways. And last, of course, why we are here and why we are working is income. So let's start with the people. On average, Serbian co-working spaces works 30 people. And that's just information. This level is level before the pandemic. So before the pandemic, the growth of the people who work and who visited co-working space grow rapidly, but pandemic stopped that, and now we are on the level of 2019. Similar situation again, I will not mention that all the time, is in all the other countries. So when we talk about that, we need to look at capacity and members. And before the pandemic, capacity grew very fast. Members couldn't follow that. We have a lot of capacities and not so much members. Today is not that kind of situation. COVID stopped the growing of the capacities and support the post-COVID period, support the growing of the growth of the members. So today we have a lot of people, a lot of spaces where people are coming and ask for a chair. They don't have to give them because everything is full. And there are a lot of reasons for that. We will talk about that a little bit later. But we need just to realize that today we have 462 seats free in Serbia co-working community. So there is space for people who want to work from co-working space. There is a space where they can find the community, where they can create some new connections. And for sure, this will not be the number tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, because the people who want to work from the co-working space is growing. 3 co-working spaces in Serbia have occupancy rate more than 95%, and this is interesting information because in the previous period we have more of them, and the reason is a lot of spaces needs to reduce the number of the chairs because of the new regulation of COVID-19 which created. So some of them have chairs, but they cannot use it because it's forbidden. Like we see today, we need to sit not one each other. We need to have one free chair. The same situation is usually in the co-working spaces. So a membership structure in co-working spaces are really interesting. And when we talk about age for the Balkan, the biggest group of the users of the co-working services is actually around 30 and 45 years old. 51%, more than a half. After that is under 30 years, and the lowest percent is the people who have 45 and more years. And in the next period, this will be just bigger for the youth people, because a lot of youth people are starting to understand co-working concepts, start to understand working on the internet, and then they search for the place where they can work. So in our prediction, the category under 30 will grow, category under 50, between 30 and 45 will stay, and category that are more of 45 years will slowly go down. When we talk about industry areas, this is interesting information that we done in the past period. So always there were most people who work in IT sector. So when we talk about IT sector, just to mention, we talk about coders, programmers, front-end developer, back-end developer, and web developer at all. That's IT. After that, you can see September 17, December 18, September 19, then was COVID, and then we done a new research. Marketing is dropping by year. Design is keeping their position. Architecture also. Photo and video animation is on the same level, and there is a lot of other occupations. And today we have 37, 38 of the Serbian co-workers are working now in IT. So it dropped a little bit, but still it's a first. The most people in co-working space are working in IT industry. After that there is going design, marketing drop for a little bit also. Architecture is there, and there is new occupation copywriting. So it shows us that COVID pandemic create new jobs in copywriting industry, that there is a lot of people who now understand that if they know English, then they have nice skills to write, they can create some value for them, and they start to do that. Also, the biggest growth is from gaming and animation industry, and again it's because the COVID creates a new let's call that a new way of thinking, because a lot of people were locked down, they download a lot of games, start to play that, and gaming and animation industry growth. After that, photography and video is on the 1%. All the time it was on 5-6%. Most people from photography and video animation started to work in gaming industry, and that's the reason. After that, we will talk about women in co-working spaces in 3 categories. First is women as co-workers. So we can see that we have a 33-34% of the women who are working from the co-working spaces, and 66% of the men. The same situation is in visiting events. So when co-working create events, usually participants are men, some 39% are women. Excuse me. And the other situation is when we talk about the management structure, the people who are leading the co-working spaces, usually it's a woman. 57% of the spaces have a woman in the management structure, and 42 of them are men. The second part is community, one of the most important parts of the co-working spaces. So, when we look in average number of the events per month in all spaces in Serbia, I need to mention that we collect information from almost 30 co-working space, which is more than a half, and this sample is representative by statistical enumeration. So 129 events are created every month in Serbia co-working community. What that mean? That means that total visiting people per month in co-working community in Serbia was 70-40. And this is the biggest drop in all co-working spaces in Serbia and in region. In past years, we have approximately, let's say, average people who visited the events was on the level of, let's say, 50 to 70 people. Now, if you create event in Serbia or in region, you will usually can count that you will have 10 or 15 people. And that's the biggest drop. Why are that kind of result? What are the reasons for that? We can talk about that, but probably a lot of Zoom links, a lot of online webinars, a lot of trainings that are online, events that are online, show to the people who participate on the event that time is really valuable, resource, that they can take it for themselves, so they can follow the lecture from his coach. The total number of people who passed through the co-working spaces in Serbia in whole year this 2021 was 50,450 people. This is okay number, but just imagine how it was before 3 years when it was 200,000 or something like that. So that community dropped pretty much. But we need to find a pilot, and that's why we are here. Delhi Space decided to create a pilot events in the nature. So one of them was business run, where people from IT community decide to run for the local good, let's call it like that, and also to create some event in the open space, because those events are better for the community, better for the people who are afraid of the COVID or something else, who are afraid of the people because we was all locked down. And this is the way that maybe can solve the problem that we have now with 10, 15 people who participate on the event which we prepare 1 month. Next step, and about what we will talk, is collaboration in the co-working spaces. So all the co-working spaces have similar structure of the people. It's usually some of them have companies, some of them have freelancers, some of them have both, which is great. And we try to measure how they collaborate. So we find out that when we talk about companies, they usually sometimes collaborate with the other tenants in the co-working. And when we talk of freelancers, they collaborate more than a companies. So, and we have a lot of that kind of examples in Delhi Space. For example, one day 6 freelancers decided to create a new company, and we said, okay, now you need to leave our space because, you know, it's totally paranormal to have more than a half co-workers in one company. And this is great result because this show that open community, co-working community like to collaborate, like to create new values, and in the next period I'm sure that these numbers will just grow in the right direction. And the third part of the presentation is income, which is probably more co-working membership fee, around 40%. After that there is renting space in offices for commercial purposes, around 30%, projects 20%, sponsors, donations and crowdfunding campaigns 8%, and other 3.3%. And this is interesting again because in the past period renting spaces and offices commercial was pretty lower on the list. A lot of co-working spaces create a pivot again in COVID pandemic. They decide to use the space for events as offices, as a space where they can create some live stream to the other companies, and that's how they solve the problem with events, because there was no events in space for the work. They started to work from the home, and 5% is consulting services that we offer. Average loss of the co-working space on monthly basis in COVID-19 period in Serbia was up to 1,000 euros. 24% of the spaces have that kind of loss. From 1,000 to 5,000, 47 of space. So that's almost half of the spaces in Serbia had a loss monthly 1 to 5,000 euros, and over 5,000 euros 29%. But I need to mention that in that moment we had the spaces in Serbia whose loss was more than 10, 20, 30,000 of euros. And imagine what kind of problem that goes to the management, to the people who take care of that space, and especially people who work at that space. I need to mention also, it's not a presentation, that most of the spaces didn't adopt the employers. They keep them, they pay them regular paychecks. So this community really tried to be, let's call that like fair in the COVID period. And after pandemic co-working, we need to talk about this because this is new reality. Like they want to say when COVID happened, new reality. Now there is a new reality. We understand that COVID is there. We understand that we need to live with that. But we cannot stop to do our jobs. We cannot stop to take out in the morning, to exercise and everything what we do. But we need to think about what will happen again, because if we don't do that, maybe some new COVID will happen, and I'm sure that most of the space in that moment will need to close their doors. So we have some 5 ways of that. First is that working in co-working space is interesting to people. There is a lot of people who want to be part of the co-working spaces. Especially now there is opportunity because a lot of companies, a lot of IT companies understand that there is no need for the offices for them, their employers. They can pay them some chair in the co-working space in some village, and that will create a much bigger number of the digital nomads. People will start to travel and work because now the big company don't need you in their office. You can work wherever you want. Second part is prices are very affordable. We need to agree about that, because for 100 euro you have everything. There's no hidden costs. So you got fast internet. What is the most important thing? Fast internet, not sustainable internet. The second one, you have a lot of coffee, juices. You have the cleaning services. You don't need to worry about nothing, just about your job. You have to focus and to work. A special offer. And again, we're coming to hybrid operation models where a lot of people will use this to travel, to work from the other space, to work from the seasides, and this can create the other opportunity. And that other opportunity will be a co-living as a solution. So if you offer them a great space where he can work, you didn't solve all the problems. He still needs to sleep somewhere, to eat food, to do all the regular things. Co-living will be a great solution for that. It started to be, but now it's a moment when we need to empower that. Because there is a complete service, complete offer. Everything is on the table. Just come here and don't worry about nothing. Pay us a hotel, pay us a bed or whatever. You will get all the services. You just need to wake up, do the things what you do and you want to do, and go to sleep. And the important thing for this is promotional packages between co-working spaces, but especially between co-working spaces, touristical organizations, and local municipalities. They need to understand that arriving on the digital nomads will create better environment, not just in the co-working space, but in the city, and not just in the city, in the whole country, because those people will spend their money in that town. And there is interesting, I want to quote one digital nomad who said, "It's strange to my parents, I'm used to it, and our children will have it like a good day." So this is the way where it's going. Joint cooperation of several spaces and hubs. Delhi Space think a lot about new ways of the working, especially because crisis hit us really, really bad. And we decided to create a new solution. I will represent it a little bit later, but if you have good idea, program that works, just share it. There is a people for sure who will say, "Oh, I want to participate in that and to be a partners with you." We hope that in the next period we will have Delhi outdoors in few other countries, so Bosnia, Croatia, Montenegro, and we will together with our partners create a new programs. Your big market, partnership, not competition. So we need to turn on that way, to look in all co-working spaces as a partners. The great thing is project programs and examples of good practices, and I need to say that cooperation is really important. We need to encourage and empower the cooperation. We have a great cooperation in Serbia, for example. There is created an association of Serbia co-working spaces before a few years. 20 of the co-working spaces participate in everyday communication. But we need to understand that we create a global market, and we need to guarantee a quality of that services that we offer. So if the region is stronger together, maybe that can be a good point for the next steps. And at the end of this slide, I need to mention that this project, and also Digital City, which was created before 2 years now, in collaboration with Nova Iskra and British Council, that's our examples of good practices. And that's why we need to empower this kind of project to participate more and to create new values. And at the end, there is innovative solutions which we created, some of them we hope that we will create together with all of you. First of them is products. We need new products, we need new startups, we need new ecosystem. You can see one of the products created in Delhi space also here in front of the conference center, Hola Systems. And it creates a great, let's call that like equipment which measure the temperature and clean your hands and give you information, do you have temperature or not, or can you go on the work or go home. It was answering the COVID pandemic. Before that, they produced the touch screens for the tourist organization and the city municipalities. Delhi Outdoor Franchise, we call you to be our partner. If you think that you have a great place where you can post the Delhi Outdoor, which is represented here in the picture, just call us and we will give you all know-how, and together with you we will create that. So, Delhi Outdoor is imagined to be somewhere in the nature. It can be co-living, it can be also just a co-working space, it totally with us. We have both strategy, so we are open to share the information, and if you are interested, be our guests. And the most important thing, knowledge exchange, program exchange, live stream, and maybe my favorite, unique pass for enters any space. Imagine if somebody lands to the Belgrade, work for 2 days. After that, he search and see a cheap flight for the Tivat. He went there. In Tivat, there is also co-working space. He can work there. After that, I don't know, he go to the niche. With one pass, he can use all the co-working space and everything else, but this can be a great thing. And at the end, conclusion, the capacity of co-working spaces is growing faster than the membership. COVID stopped that for a while. We will see what will happen in the next period. One of the ways of bringing more members is stronger community, the co-working spaces, and better collaboration between co-working spaces and between the tenants. Also, membership is really important. New solutions are just around the corner, so just find them. And digital nomads will be just more and more important for the co-working community, and that's for sure. If you want to download the research, you can do that for free on our website. Use it however you want, just mention Delhi Space as organization. And thank you very much.
Thank you, Milan. Thank you for everything. And unfortunately, we do not have time for questions, but I'm sure that we will find you later and ask you all the questions about all of this research that you just presented. Thank you once again. And now I'm going to invite Kate Maiolini to stage. Kate's passion is fostering connections, communities, and partnerships. She has a strong understanding of the co-living and co-working sector. She's a community living enthusiast, entrepreneur, startup enthusiast, investor, a podcast lady, and industry educator. As I mentioned before, she was supposed to be joined on stage by Christian, who unfortunately could not be here. So let's give Kate a big round of applause and support her.
Okay, good morning. Sorry, I am also quite ill, but Christian decided not to come because he was really ill. You can see his poor ill face in here. But I made it, so here I am. So first of all, thank you everybody for being here, and I really hope you enjoyed the past 2 days. I think the parties were quite good, as my friend Tamara just said. And gesture me if you cannot hear me properly. What I found very interesting is I had the opportunity to talk to a lot of you, and I also realized that not everybody who is here right now really knows what co-working is. And I guess also that's one of the reasons why many people are here. So I would like to take you on a little bit of a journey of what co-working is. Oh yeah, they're moving. I didn't do any technical rehearsal, so I wasn't sure. Okay, so what is co-working? I think a lot of people have very different opinions, and they like to express it as well. For some people, co-working started, for example, with the first Starbucks coffee in 2010. They were one of the first ones who allowed you to walk in and just stay there all day using the Wi-Fi, drinking their coffee. And I think we've developed so much more from there, and co-working means something very different. So I'm going to take you, as I was saying, on a couple of definitions of co-working. These are more, I want to say, traditional one, both from Wikipedia and from Google, where they focus very much on the fact that co-working is an office space, or a space anyway, where a group of people that work independently come together, share a space, and work, and that's it. But I personally and strongly believe that co-working is much more than that, and I would like to take you to a couple of more definitions of what co-working is for me. Does anyone know, by any chance, where this co-working might be, or can guess? Yes. Of course, you know, one of the super travel digital nomad. Yes, but this is Bali, absolutely. So what I really like about the definition that Gail here gives about co-working is the fact that I strongly believe is also the new way of working, and it really helps with the freedom to pick where in the world you want to be, and when you actually want to work, and actually who you want to work with. And the fact that digital nomad and a lot of people will have more location-independent future work life, I think we're going to see more and more of this one. And here we have another co-working that for me has been very special, and that really represent what community means and why co-working will work and does work actually. So what is very important for me in here is that co-working connects you to a global network of professional peers. But what is also very interesting in co-working, and what co-working gives you, is also the opportunity to work in very different spaces, as in area within the co-working environment. So I was watching a YouTube report on co-working, and in an interview, one of the architects was mentioning why working in a co-working space and using different part of the space makes it such a different and such a good thing, because it really challenges who you are. And if you're always working in the same room, perhaps at home, you kind of like get used to your environment as well, and sometimes getting out of your comfort zone, it's something that helps. And the opportunity that you have to actually brainstorm every day, or to just even exchange a couple of minutes of a chat with someone else, as you can see, makes people much happier. So just a quick recap on what I think the key components of the co are for me. It's you really make and you take the best of the spaces that we already know, and we make it so much better and more community oriented. We blend in with remote working experience and the benefits. What we really would like to do is to increase flexibility, accessibility, and adaptability. And what is extremely important, and I think Milan was also tapping on this before, I can't see him anymore, but is the supporting the member experience and the culture. But I would like to ask you a quick question, and it's not as many of us today, but do you think co-working is actually here to stay? Yeah. Oren, thank you for replying always. I find it an interesting question, because there are many people that think actually that co-working is just a fancy word to distract from new ways of working, and there is a bit of a fear that maybe industry investor and big investors will come in and change the culture, but I strongly believe that that's not the way it is. And the reason why I believe that is because, I think not many people will want to return to the office to kind of like be in an environment which is like that. So I don't think this person looks happy, right? No? Okay. Does anyone can identify maybe with this picture at all? Because that's how I used to be many, many years ago when I was working in a more traditional office, just with a lot of paperwork on my desk, etc. And I'm sure there will be still some of this in the future, but I also hope that we will see many more of this type of environment, where not only the environment is more dynamic, as you can see, there are all different areas like I was explaining before, but also the possibility of interacting with other people, to talk to them, to speak to them, to brainstorm, to be on your own if you want to, but to also work in a very different environment. it's what really makes a difference. And for me, an environment like that is something to push further, just the creativity, the collaboration, also by leveraging the community that is around you. So this is one of the things that I believe the most, that, oh, it's not working anymore. Did I do something to it? No, okay. That community is, in fact, the keys. And I think we have seen it in the past few months, especially with the pandemic, how communities are very important. And here I want to talk to you a little bit about how some of the people that were hit the hardest by loneliness, especially during the pandemic, are actually the young adults. And in few of the panels yesterday, but also I think someone touched about it today, we were talking about how the next generation of workforce that is going to be more location independent and digital nomad, etc., will be the one that now are what we define the young adults. So if this is what they feel, the photo is blurry on purpose, because I think that's exactly how they feel right now, in a bit of a blurry moment where they don't know what is happening. They're very uncertain about a lot of things. And I think the fact that we have the opportunity right now to create more spaces that are concentrated on the community and not just the production, I think is something that is extremely important. I read a report a few months ago that was talking about how between April and May last year, so in 2020, only 5% of the people said that they felt a feeling of loneliness. And then by February 2021, the percentage increased to nearly 12%. And that, I think, it's a really exponential growth. The difference in co-working for me is this. But this is one of the places, as Tamara was mentioning in my intro, I am also the head of ambassador for Co-live, which is a global co-living association. And this is one of the experiences that I have shared this summer with some of the digital nomad, actually, with a group which is called IT. This statement, I don't know if you can read it properly, because maybe it's written a little bit small, but I really like the fact that it says that digital nomads tend to use community-oriented workspaces. So, example, co-working spaces, just because one of the main reasons is also tackling the feeling of isolation. As much as we like to travel and go around the world, we always seek to join a community and to work in this sort of environment too. Now, this is a number that you've heard many times in this past day, especially. Yesterday was mentioned a lot of time. There's a lot of articles that talk about the fact that by 2035, most likely there will be 1 billion people that are either digital nomad or location independent workforce. And that's really a staggering number. And I think, okay, maybe we're not going to grow to the very bottom figure, but it is something that I think will carry on growing exponentially. And so if we think about, even if just half of the people that move around in this way and they will want to work more location independent, will seek to work in a co-working environment or in a co-working space, I don't think we are anywhere nearby to have the supply that is requested. So we have a few years ahead to build more spaces. And the great thing about this digital nomad or location independent is that I guess they want to be location independent because they also want to be able to travel around. And they move and they will travel. Yesterday, one of the last panel, I think, Dean was on as well, we're really concentrating on how governments around the world are really working very hard on either digital nomad visa or welcoming anyone that wants to live there for a certain amount of time so that they have the possibility to experience the country, experience the culture, travel in an easier way. And this is going to shift a lot of people in different places. I think, Oren, you were talking about suggesting actually the idea of having a visa on a regional visa or a European visa or a continent visa. And I think that's actually such a brilliant idea because it will make this even easier. If before a digital nomad or a location-independent person will seek to move maybe in 5 different countries, and there was only 17%, the easier we make it, the easier it will be made for them. The more people will travel, the more they will seek the same thing, communities, co-working spaces, perhaps co-living spaces as well, or perhaps an hybrid of both of them. And so I think we will definitely see a growth of request, for sure, of these type of spaces. So as of today, that we know of, or that at least we are aware of, there are just above 24,000 co-working spaces in the world globally, and this number keeps on growing. If we think that in 2018, at the end of 2018, so not much long ago, it was only about 14,000. I think the growth is quite important, considering we just spent 18 months in some sort of lockdown, in some countries more and in some countries less. What is interesting in here is to notice how some of the largest chains as well, for example, like IWG already has more than 3,000 working spaces around the world globally, and they keep on growing and they keep on working with government, like for example they've done in Japan, where they have a deal and the government workers are actually able to use any of the location of IWG in Japan, so they don't have to go back to a physical, let's say traditional and just one building office, but they are able to work more location independently. And we work, I guess everybody knows we work. They still have more than 800 branches globally. And as we were saying, this is a global phenomenon. It's not that it's happening just in one region or another, or in one city and not another. There was a report in March this year by JLL that was mentioning how in Latin America, 90% of the operators were already thinking about expanding in the next 12 months. No matter the pandemic, they just really saw the potential and they wanted. And more than 70% of workers that used co-working before pandemic, even if they stopped during the pandemic itself, they're all considering returning to it, whilst around 60% of remote workers that were not using a co-working space before are now strongly considering doing that and not just working from home. Yay. Okay, so why investing in co-working center for me is smart in a post-pandemic world? So I also live in London, which is a city with millions of people and therefore densely populated. And I believe in this type of location, there is a strong need for co-working spaces as I was saying, in this type of urban location. And the reason is living spaces are a premium and people are more likely to live in smaller places like flats or house share, and therefore they don't have the opportunity to have a separated and dedicated spare office or room area. So working from home in this location isn't necessarily the easiest, and people living closer to places like central London will probably go back to working in some sort of office environment with a preference to co-working much quicker than they might do if they were based further afield. So for me, co-working spaces in city might serve a slightly different purpose than the ones in rural area, although the focus is always on community and the quality of life for me. And here we go to one of my favorite concepts. Has anyone ever heard of 15-minute cities? Can I see your hands if you have? Oh, good. So that's quite a lot. Sorry. My bad cold. So if you are not familiar with the concept, I'm going to explain it a little bit, but I also want to explain why the photo is in French. The photo is in French because the original concept of 15-minute city was developed by Professor Moreno at one of Paris University called Sorbonne, and it was adopted by the mayor of Paris actually a few years ago as one of the first ones to really implement the lifestyle of people living in the city itself. So the 15-minute city concept is a concept that really wants to create cities or town or areas anyway within the city itself. For example, if you're talking about big cities, where everything that is needed can be reached within a quarter of an hour, so 15 minutes, either by foot or bike from where the person lives. It's obviously the aim is to improve the quality of life by removing commutes and having more time for fostering interrelationships and communities. So as you can see a little bit in here, there is a little house in the middle with written chez moi, which means at my place in French. And you can see that everything kind of like radiates out. Whatever the person wants to do is within 15 minutes reach, or whatever the person is. And I think this is one of the characteristics I love the most. For example, when I was in Bansko this summer, is that's exactly how I felt. It was really the first time, apart from some area of London where I live, which is debatable from others, is that I really felt that wherever I was, no matter what, within 15 minutes, either walking or even by cycling, I could reach anything, from the co-working space to some of the restaurants, some of the leisure centers, anything that I wanted to do. And the quality of life improves so much, because then you get so much time to dedicate either to your work if you want to, but also to really fostering connection with your local community. Another thing that I really like about the 15-minute city, and why is it so important for me for co-working, is because it really aims to repurpose a lot of the spaces in the city, and is a concept that really influenced planning also some of the most popular area, and to repurposing some other building, such as such as a department store. So a lot of the retail is now being repurposed more into centers where, instead of just going shopping for a reason, considering the shopping and purchasing in general has changed totally, we see a lot of shift in what the planning is doing and how they want to repurpose such a building. So there is a strong movement in the UK especially about working local. So as you can see, with an aim of reaching a lot of working local in 2030, and to really shift the focus from the commute to community. As I was mentioning before, retail has really changed very much in the last maybe 8 years, and definitely dramatically in the last 18 months. And many spaces which hosted retail are now considering repurposing their spaces and making them a more work and leisure center for people to spend more time, and also to spend more money again, instead of just being at home and within the building itself. Sometimes to work by offering some innovative spaces. As you can see in here, for example, this is an example of something that will happen in one of the department stores that closed down in London. And also well-being spaces, like, for example, yoga studio, everything in the same location so that you can balance it. And you can also take break while you're working. So by having a co-working space in a place like that, you can work for a few hours, then step out, go up, go down, but you're still within the same environment and probably not as far from where you live. IKEA is also working on something very similar, on a project very similar in China, where they are really working together, I think with the government, if I'm not wrong, or with the local authority, and they're really thinking of incorporating co-working, for example, in their more traditional shop setup, so that people can go there and spend even more time, but also being able to shift from work to leisure in a quickly way. So for me, this brings me back a little bit to the initial question, which was co-working post-pandemic, stagnation of exponential growth. And for me personally, the reply is quite obvious, and I can see the trend going higher and higher, and this is from Google Analytics, obviously from Google Search Stats. It's between September 2020 and August 2021, and you can see how the search for co-working space near me, and generally co-working spaces anyway, has gone up. It had a peak at a certain point for the co-working spaces, and then it's gone down, and now it's coming up again. But co-working spaces near me is one of the hits as well. And I think it's very important, because it really relates to the 15-minute city concept that I was mentioning before, but it also opens up more opportunity for people that want to open co-working spaces, not just in one city, but in different area, because people don't want to commute as much anymore, but they want to be close by. And before I finish, I would like to also share this with you. So if you are curious maybe about different type of co-working spaces and places around the world, who they are, where they are, how they started, what is the story behind them, I would strongly recommend you to take a look at this book, which was written by my friends, the co-workers. In 5 years, they visited about 420 spaces. They spent time talking to the founders. They spent time talking to people, the opening, to the community manager, to really understand how co-working works, and not just the space itself, but they went to really some remote co-working spaces. They went to some co-working spaces in cities. They went to co-working spaces that were just for creative, just for mother, just for senior citizens, which sadly a lot of time people forget that there is life after 55. And it's really interesting to see how this whole co-working movement, it's working not just in one area or for one niche. So the classical, for example, let's say millennial, early millennial, late generation Z, for example, but for everything. And I think this is one of my strongest arguments when people sometimes ask me, well, I don't know if there is a co-working space that would be suitable for me. My reply is, yeah, for sure there is. And if there is not yet, someone is going to open it very soon. And I think this is what we will seek moving forward. And yeah, present in basically every country in the world. And yeah, if you want to have a chat about it, let us know. And we integrate with a lot of softwares as well, other softwares and other tech. So if you are already using something similar in your co-working space and you want to implement access control, I'm very happy to have a chat about it.
In the meantime, we got actually a question from the audience. So if you
no.
could also take that.
Thank you, Kate.
Okay, I'm ready for your question.
I'm ready, Kate. Can you hear me? Yeah, you can. Great.
Yes.
So thank you very much. I really, really liked your presentation. It was really easy to follow and really lively. So thanks so much. And I feel that I learned a lot from you.
It's because they
and I
helped me.
think all of you did a great job. So
Yeah.
thank you so much. I really enjoyed it. I just have a comment to make. So I live in Vienna, and IKEA opened in the city centre last week.
Okay.
It's not accessible by cars. You can only go there on foot.
Okay.
And it's surrounded by restaurants, gyms, and all kinds of shops. So it's not quite the same thing as in China, but I already noticed that they're moving towards a new concept.
Cool. I'm going to Vienna tomorrow, so maybe I'll go and
please
check it out.
It's right in the city centre, and
Yep.
it's really unusual because you can't park, you have to walk, and it's just like in the middle of a shopping centre surrounded by lots of different shops and restaurants and gyms and everything.
Cool.
So I think they might be testing that new concept in Vienna already.
Cool. I will go and take it. Thank you very much for letting me know.
Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Kate. And now it's time for our next panel. The panel is titled Co-working Pandemic Story, and will be, since we're talking about co-working, now is the time to hear from some of the operators. The moderator for this panel will be Matthias Zeitler, who you just heard about, but let me present him a bit better. Matthias is a location-independent entrepreneur with a passion for community building. Lately, he has been focusing his energy on bringing people to Bansko in Bulgaria with a co-living and co-working project he's developing, as well as the annual Bansko Nomad Fest. He will be joined on stage
when COVID is finally over. So with this, I think we want to start with Christian. We start with Matthias. So we have different slides about our co-working spaces. So what you see behind me is Bansko. So I moved about 5 years ago into a small rural mountain village in Bulgaria. We have only 10,000 people living there. In the winter, it's a big ski resort, so there's many tourists in the winter, but for the rest of the year, it really feels like a very small village. As Kate mentioned, in 15 minutes, you can walk across the whole village. So a very unlikely place to open a co-working space. The reason why I ended up there is I didn't really want to create a big digital nomad movement towards Bansko. I was just looking for a base for myself. Bulgaria had many things that I liked, so I was nomadic before. I claim I'm still nomadic, and Bulgaria is a great base. It has only 10% income tax flat. It has a very low cost of living. It's in Europe, so you don't need a visa to stay there longer. It has a Mediterranean climate, and it has very good connections to get all over the world with low-cost airlines. So I found this little mountain town for my to form. To give you an idea what it looks like on the inside, so we have different locations. It's all very orange, which is also great because people remember the color. It burns a little bit in their eyes, and then they know, okay, I've been at the orange place. As I mentioned, some places that look more like a coffee shop where people hang out. If you actually look at the previous picture, there's no people in it. So when you talk about co-working, always have pictures with people to show the community, because it's really not about the desk or the chairs, it's always about the people. We do many things year round, so for me this was also super important when I moved to this village, that even though in the winter it's full of tourists and everyone, at least in the region, knows about Bansko, knows about skiing there, but it's
the way we will live, learn and work in the future. We do that through educational program and projects, Nova Iskra Studio, which is an innovation lab, and Nova Iskra Workspace, with what is the focus, which is the focus today. So Nova Iskra Workspace is one of our brands. We have 3 locations in Belgrade, Savamala, Zemun, and Dorčel. So our first co-working space was Savamala in 2012. We began with around 300 square meters. We now have around 500 on this location, and it looks like this. It's very open space. The second one is Zemun. We opened in 2017. It's around 120, 110 units. One unit is per person, and it's one building on 7 floors. So it's kind of on each floor you have 3 divisions. So it's more for small teams that start with 5 people and they grow to 15. So the space is very adaptable for them. Yeah, and everyone's happy here. And this is the third one. We opened in September 2019, 6 months before Corona. And yeah, it's not orange, but we have this very light color. And it's around, it's the biggest place, it's around 1,300 square meters and around 120 units. And yeah, we have a little auditorium for people watch basketball. And so yeah, and this is it. This is our, so this is Nova Iskra Workspace, and in total we have 3,000 square, 300 units. So yeah, relax. Thank you.
So hi to everybody. First of all, I want to thank you to the team that organized this fantastic event, and to say bravo for everybody. It was a great days here, and here also nights parties, and I hope so that these events will happening in next period a lot of, and meeting in different countries. My co-working story, maybe I will start with my co-working story, because the presentation that I make this morning fast is in that way. So my co-working story starting about a few years ago, when I was thinking that it's a good thing to make one co-working space in Podgorica, and I was starting thinking and searching, and I found that it's not the right time a few years ago, and waiting for the right time. And in 2019, I said, okay, it's time. I can make it. I want to open. And I was in a co-living conference in Belgrade, see what's happening, talk with everybody, learn a lot of things, and say, okay, in the 2020, I'll open, in the first quarter, I'll open the co-working space. So I started building, making, and opened 15th of March. I opened a co-working space in Podgorica, and we had the first event. It was great, and this is some photo. This is the event center, our conference room, and this is our offices. So this is open space. We have 12 places in open space. We have 3 offices, and we have one conference room and 2 meeting rooms. So we opened the 50th of March, and day after, 60th of March, we have a situation that is lockdown, so we closed. So this is the really one really co-working story, and we sit down and say, so what we're gonna do now? Everybody knows we was thinking that COVID will be maybe 1 month, 3 months. It was a story that maybe half year, maybe 1 year. So now it's October of 2021, and we have also COVID. So we sit and say, okay, what we gonna do? We have a space. We started. Should we lock and wait, or we go fight and make some good story, good space in Podgorica? Promote that the style of working. So we started making some little events, hybrid conferences. We starting to make some good stories online. We share, speak with people, because in that period we can make it 20 people inside of the space. So we started to make some events, free events, talks. We made, I think, about 10 events in that period. That was really good, and people came and see the spaces. And in that period, it was something that's strange in Podgorica, because nothing happens. Everybody shut down. All events, so it was great. People was coming, people was looking the space. We were introducing them with the co-working story. So it lasts until, I think, the February. Everything was unsecured. You cannot plan nothing. You cannot make some short-term or long-term plans. So in the February, something starts to happen. The people starts to go out from their homes and come to work in co-working space. And we think that from that period, it was a high growth, and we make one good, in that period, a very strange decision, but we make a decision to expand our co-working space. Our co-working space is 400 square meters. The first one, we decided to make one more. It's just to expand to another floor with 200 square meters, and everybody say you are crazy. Everything is closed and nothing working. But we say, okay, if you make it like this, maybe we'll make a bigger impact. People will see what is co-working space better. They will come. They will try. And that in the June, we opened the second floor, and that is one of the, I think, best decision we make, because with that, a lot of people coming, companies start coming, and now in this period, 4 months after that, we are 100% full, and we have a lot of companies, small, we have big companies, and now I think the next period will make a good story for co-working. We're now trying to bring more people just for one day for the events, to see what is co-working and also co-living. because we have 2 apartments in the same building, so we offering for the digital nomads also the place for stay and work in the same building. And now I think next period we manage and think what is the next steps. I think next steps will be also expanding, because the situation is in Podgorica is that IT sector, because we also saw that IT sector is most important for the co-working space. IT sector now is growing in Podgorica and Montenegro, and a lot of companies now opening in Podgorica. So community of co-working spaces and co-workers and digital nomads, because in that period we had a lot of talks, we had a lot of online conferences, and we was talking about everything and what's happening and giving suggestions to each other, so that I think make a lot of spaces that keep it alive. So for me that is all. I hope that you enjoyed, and for everybody, if you come in Podgorica, you're welcome to Nest, and this is our QR code for our website, so you can visit website and see what we offer. But in these days, if you are staying longer in Montenegro, come to Podgorica and be our guest. Thank you.
Yeah, maybe a little bit of the COVID history in Bansko. So last year in March, March is still great for skiing. So we had a weekend event with Dynamite Circle, which is a group of more mature nomads that do events around the world. So we had a Dynamite X event in Bansko with 30 of their members. And they came for the weekend. I remember that on the Friday, we wanted to go to like a hotel that had a nice buffet where we always go. And the hotel told us they just got an order that they can only serve guests and nobody can come in. So we were like, okay, this is weird. And then next morning we had our conference, and like around lunchtime we get a call from the mayor, and the mayor is saying, you need to shut down immediately, we're going to close the city. And we were like, what's going on? So nobody could believe what's really happening. So we kind of soft ended our conference by turning the lights off and putting everyone in the basement for the rest of the day. And then ended the event early on Sunday. And got transfers for people back to the airport. And then on Monday, the whole town was closed. So there were army at the 2 entrances of town. And for the next 4 weeks, nobody could leave Bansko or enter Bansko. We felt like in a war zone. And of course, for our members that were there, like mostly nomads, this was super disruptive. I mean, first of all, of course, it was unusual. I think Bansko was the first and only place in Europe that ever got fully shut down like this. And of course, this means also all the restaurants closed, and very few of our members cook. So we were worried about food and what's going to happen. I normally give my laundry to the laundry place in the next village. I couldn't leave Bansko, so I didn't have fresh laundry. So there was like all kind of weird things happening, and members were scared. We then had a WhatsApp group to keep in touch, because it was also constantly changing regulations. You were only allowed to go to the grocery store that's closest to you. But of course, nobody really knew what is the closest grocery store. There were huge fines in the media, like if you were caught outside, you were supposed to pay a 10,000 lever fine. And we were all scared, and we were watching Tiger King in our apartments and didn't know what's happening to the world. And of course, this also meant that a lot of the nomads that came, they were very worried, because a lot of them were guests in the country, right? And all of a sudden they were locked in a country that they didn't expect to be locked in. We had members that were locked out. We have quite a few people that bought apartments in Bansko, and they were coming back at the end of the ski season, and they couldn't get into Bulgaria. Once they were in Bulgaria, they were not allowed to travel to Bansko. At a later point, the restrictions were eased so that you just couldn't travel between cities, but also this didn't help, because if you land in Sofia and you can't come back to your apartment in Bansko, so it was very, very scary for our members. Of course, also A lot of the people were working for larger companies. All the companies were scared. So the first thing they cut were all like the freelance contracts with people and putting everything on hold and waiting and seeing. So it was a very scary time. Then once the restrictions eased up a little bit, we had a big meeting with our members. Because also, of course, for the co-working space, especially for a co-working space that's focusing on people that travel, this was a big risk because all of a sudden nobody could come in or come out anymore. And this was very scary for the co-working space as a business, as a community. But what happened, and I was really happy and also surprised about this, is many members instantly, even though we had to close the co-working space, said, yes, we are going to continue to pay for membership. We had some members that prepaid their membership for the next year to make sure that there's cash flow during these dire times. So I think it also brought really the community together. And last year, even though we had many travel restrictions, we were still growing compared to the year before. Also this year we were growing. And I think this is really exciting because on the one hand, there's people that can no longer travel to Asia because you can't go to Bali or to Thailand. So we had many Bulgarian nomads, for example, that came to Bansko for the first time this year. Because they didn't have any other choice. But I'm happy with people, even if I'm their second choice. I think they had a great time exploring their own country and seeing what a lot of foreigners see in Bansko, experience this themselves. So many said it didn't even feel like Bulgaria when they stepped into our bubble, so it was something new for them. So we had a lot of changes in the community and the people that come. Normally we have about 30% Americans that travel in Europe, and then once they run out of Schengen time, again, we are only their second best choice, but they come to Bansko and they enjoy it there for another 90 days. This has totally stopped at the moment, so Americans can't travel. Also, we have this constantly changing colors from green to orange to red, and now there's even a dark red color for people that then can come in or not come in. There's many rules, but then on the other hand, Bulgaria is not really great at enforcing rules. So we had also many people that came from countries that were not supposed to come, and nobody asked them for any tests or vaccination at the border. We had one American who smuggled himself in the trunk of a car through the border inside the country. We had one American member that overstayed for 14 months. And for 14 months, she was worried what's going to happen at the border. And we did a lot of research, what is the maximum fine and who is the lawyer to call. And then she just left Bulgaria and nobody cared. So it was, it's very weird for the members. It was very weird for us. I think that it also provides some opportunities. So it, our community changed a little bit from people that come for 1 to 3 months. Many people stayed longer. This created a different type of connections. So I'm still looking back. I'm not totally sure if now this pandemic was great for us or not so great, or how bad it was it really. But overall, it really changed things in the co-working space. And for me, this was a very exciting time. And I wonder, Christian, how did you experience COVID for your space and your members?
My experience was more like a horror story. Yeah, for us it was this period from March last year to June this year was very bad, because we, as I said, we opened the last location 6 months before COVID, and everything started to work very fine. And from the middle of March to middle of April, 70% of people just left the locations and switched to work from home. So the problem in that period was that when you're running the co-working business, you provide some flexibility for people, and so you don't have the long-term leases, so you don't have the long-term contracts. So the people just, when they want to cut, they just leave. And so that means that the drop of the revenue and income went just like bam. And that's the biggest problem. It was like for 1 year, a little bit more for just cash blading. And but fortunately, workspace is not our only, we have diversity in business models. So as I mentioned, we have education projects and programs and consulting firms. So it was okay, but if will be another lockdown, I think we can just close the locations. So yeah, it wasn't good.
Just want to say
Mm-hmm.
what you said for the short rental.
Mm-hmm.
That is something that for us was important, because in that period we had a few small companies and a few people that came and make contact with us for 1 month or 50 days or 2 months or 5 days, 10 days, and with that we make something so it can keep alive. But that was important, because in our situation nobody wants to make a long-term contracts, and everybody just want to change, to move from the space to space, and came and make some contract along 1 month or 2 months or 3 months, and that flexibility is something that give us in that period a small but important income. And with that show people and what is co-working space, and that people was talking to each other and promoting our space. So that flexibility was really important for us.
Do you see any change in your membership, because before pandemic and now and maybe after pandemic? So is there any change in the people that come to the co-working space?
Yes, yeah, we see the change, and I think the thing is we are still in pandemic. It's not over, and we don't know when it will be over. But people are coming back to co-working, and yeah, maybe the structure is a little bit different, because I think in, let's say, post-pandemic economy, the big companies will have the budget for maintaining their headquarters, while businesses, small and medium, I don't think so. So our new, say, co-workers are more or less the businesses, the small businesses from 10, 15 people teams. So yeah, we see the change in that. And I think that is the opportunity to fulfill this void, this gap in post-pandemic.
Ilya?
We don't have before pandemics. We are totally in COVID from first day. But what I said from beginning, it's our membership are mostly from IT, and I think that would grow also and stay. IT memberships. Also the digital nomads that was in Montenegro also was from an IT industry, so that's, I think, the most important structure of our co-workers.
Okay, so what I see a little bit in our membership is pre-pandemic, we mostly had people that did e-commerce, there were software developers that did their work, maybe not even always a full day, but maybe like half a day of writing a little bit of code and then playing in a hammock. While now with the pandemic, I think a lot of companies embrace more remote work, and we see more and more remote workers that are employed by a company that don't run their own business. And they have slightly different requirements when it comes to a co-working space. So in our case, before we had some phone rooms that people could use on a fair use basis, and normally these rooms were pretty empty because nobody was calling their customers if they're an Amazon business. But now with the remote workers, they have to hang out in team meetings the whole day. So the usage patterns of our phone rooms changed completely. We are moving away from a fair use principle to more of a credit-based system now, especially in the winter when we see that people will be more indoors and use more phone rooms. Also, I think the requirements start to change a little bit. So we have more and more companies that ask us if they can come for like a team retreat. And of course, companies also have very different requirements than freelancers. They expect that a lot of things are being done for them. So I always claim we are a community-driven co-working space where a lot of things happen because of our members do it. For example, when we do events, normally members put on these events. We have some members that help with cleaning the coffee machines or taking the garbage out. If you have a company that's coming for a retreat, nobody is going to clean the coffee machine. Quite the opposite. They want us to serve them the coffee like a barista. So I think there's a changing pattern in remote work that's also affecting co-working spaces in more destination locations. So of course in cities this was always something in co-working, but I think for us on a destination we see the requirements and the people that use co-working spaces are changing a little bit and becoming more corporate. Did you see any changes where you had to change your co-working space because of COVID?
Very short answer, no. All 3 locations are the same. Yeah, we don't have, because from the start we have enough distance, and yeah, and in the first place it's open space, but it's enough distance from each other, and the other 2 spaces are the small let's say offices. So yeah, the only change that we see, because now we are full on, we are 100% full, so the only change we see is we don't have so much freelancers, and we have much more, the department from some business or big companies that are working from our spaces, because I think that they have enough to work from home. They want to be part of some community, to brainstorm ideas or problems in live with the colleagues, not over via Zoom or Skype or whichever the software they used. So yeah, then the space, the design interior, and didn't change.
Did you have any restrictions or legal requirements that you had to change some processes or things that you can't do anymore? Or
not so much. No, because the only requirement when it all started with the corona was that we have some distance for each person, and we have that from the start. So for us, it wasn't. Yeah.
Okay, so I mean, in Bulgaria, what we see currently, so winter is coming. We're doing an event next weekend, I mentioned it, and one of the requirements there is we need to ensure that people are either vaccinated, tested, or recovered. And the digital nomads love freedom, so it requires a little bit of convincing why people should actually get vaccinated or get tested. And of course, this is also impacting us as a community, because I don't want to create a community where I have to make a lot of rules or enforce a lot of rules. I don't know. Are you running events at the moment?
No. From the March last year, no. Not that we can't, because the measures now in Serbia are not so restricted. But the people are not coming. We can do some event before we had around 100, 110 people attending, and now we have around maybe 30. So it's not profitable, and everyone is asking, as we mentioned today already, is there going to be the live streaming via Facebook or Instagram? So yeah, we don't have that kind of events anymore.
Ilya, are you doing any events?
It's not events. It's mostly meetups. So we're making in the last half year we're making a lot of meetups. A lot of them are hybrid, but also we have, like I said before, 20 people, up to 20 people inside, and it's okay. We're making, and mostly is for IT sector. So for the big events, I don't think so now it will be possible because of the measures, but also we're keeping with the hybrid system. And I think we're preparing now, because last year we got for climate license last year, so we make it last year hybrid, but this year I hope so we'll make it live, so it will be a fully live event for climate 2021.
Can I quickly ask in the audience, like, who is actually running or working in a co-working space in the audience? Okay, we have a solid 5. is everyone thinking that post-pandemic will be better or worse for co-working spaces? Like better. Yay, the future is great.
If I said what I see and what I see here, and when I checking for all around the world, I think the pandemic now make better situation for co-working spaces and for and really get more remote workers. And I think for the co-working spaces, good time coming. So I think it'll be good in next period. If there doesn't be some lockdowns, but I don't think so. I will be fascinating. So I think the good time coming for co-working spaces.
Do you have any time frame that you plan for? Like, are you planning for the end of the pandemic already?
Sorry, I didn't understand.
Are you already planning something for the end of the pandemic? Like, do you have your own internal estimates?
We have some thoughts, we have some plans, but we'll see what this year bring, the end of this year bring to us, and we'll see what will be for next year. But definitely we plan to expand and to make some more space for the people in Podgorica, because Podgorica is a great place for living, and like Kate said, it's a 15 minutes town. We have everything, but Montenegro is half our country. So everything is close, everything you need is close. So I think in Podgorica need more spaces, and we will see what next period will be.
Excellent. So let's open this up to questions from the audience before we stop for the coffee break. Who wants to know anything about co-working or the pandemic from us?
It's a great thing that you already explained that you have been influenced by the entire situation with the COVID-19 pandemic, and that you basically managed to overcome not so short-lasting but long-lasting period of the challenges that you have been facing. My question is, did you receive any type of support from the state, from your strategic clients, or anybody else from your community in order to, in a more easier way, overcome the challenges that you are facing? And maybe what would be conclusion if something will happen? So I agree that we will definitely have a better time for the co-working community, but if something similar happens in future, do you think that we can have some learned lessons in order to receive some stronger support, since we all agree that this is important for the community and for all of us, not just for you as owners of the co-working spaces, but also for the IT community, gaming community, and all of the people that are using your services?
No.
Very short
No.
answer.
We just received, like all companies, some for payment for the employers, half of payment or something like that. It was for a few months, and that's all. We didn't get nothing, so we was alone. We was fighting a lot, but I think in next COVID is a situation that everybody had a problem, and all companies and countries have the same problem. And in that period, no, but especially not for co-working space, because I don't think so in government. Maybe 5% know what is co-working space, so we are not targeted for that and not important. But next period, definitely, if it comes like this, it will be hard. It will be really hard to go on, because we still now paying some things from period from last year, so we now making money to pay that from that period. And I would say this period, thanks for the owner of the space. That is the biggest thing that we get, because he said, okay, in this period we will stop with the payment. and we will see what happens. And after that, we will talk about your obligation for paying the space. So that is the most important thing that was good for us, because that we didn't pay in that period the place.
I have the same answer. No, only the thing that the government gave to all businesses, the half of minimum wage and that's it. We talked with government, with the Ministry of Culture and Ministry of Innovation, but with not success, because they tried to listen to us, but after 1 month it just stopped. So yeah, I know how is.
Okay, so I mean, then I'm even the lucky one. I thought I'm the unlucky one, but but now I see it can get even worse. So in Bansko, because all business had to shut down for 1 month when Bansko was on the lockdown, the government provided a subsidy with the difference between revenue of the year where they had to shut down and the year before. So we got some money, not a lot, about 5,000 euros. But the problem with this was we had to spend it very fast, and we couldn't really spend it on anything that we needed. So I now own 28 tons of wooden pallets, which will last us for the next 6 years of heating. We got a lot of support from our communities. As already mentioned, a lot of our members prepaid membership. Even people that were not in Bansko prepaid for future memberships. So this was really great. And also we had very accommodating landlords. We are renting some of our locations, and for the months where we had to shut down, we were splitting the rent, so we paid only half of the rent. And I think this was very fair. But of course, there's so many locations around the pandemic that are not being offset, right? So it's definitely a challenging time, and I'm happy that we are all here. But there's also many co-working spaces that didn't survive, and depending on how long this is going on, I mean, the tough times are still ahead if this is not ending soon.
Thank you. We have time for a really quick question. If that could be aimed at one person, that would be ideal, so we can go and use the break.
Thank you. Anyone can answer this. Pre-pandemic, there was already shared office spaces like Rigus, and also co-working spaces. Now, the idea of going back to office, even if a shared space, seems weird for most of people that have been working from home. So I think that co-working spaces have the chance to take over that market. And how do you prepare to accommodate digital nomads, freelancers, remote workers, and entire departments of different companies that now they are allocating personnel into these kind of little offices inside co-working spaces?
I really don't know what to say. It's yeah, we're trying to be there when it's happening, but we have only, in our perspective, we have only 3 locations and limited space. So when the companies are trying to put their department, let's talk about marketing department in each space, they're trying to be quick in that, and they call you and do you have space? No, let's go on. If we want to be flexible to that, I think that we will have to have some 2 buildings in somewhere, and to have some pop-up co-working or something like that. So now I think that we are not yet prepared for that, to respond to that so fast.
The question came because the situation you had you previously, like, okay, now we run out of people coming to our spaces. And in your case, well, your community helped you preparing memberships, but in your case they didn't. So having some allocated spaces for companies may help all of you to have some permanent income at least to cover some kind of expenses in case of another shutdown. I mean, with 6 months or 1 year contracts with companies. So this is something that maybe some of you should really consider right now.
Yes, I agree. We were ready now because we had 70% of space free. But in the future, this trend is now. We don't know if this will, go on. It can change. We hope that will be like this. If yes, then probably we'll open the 4th location. We talk a lot with companies, with businesses to see if this is only now trend, because they don't know if it will be another lockdown or not. So for now I don't have the right answer, but we know about that, and we hope that we'll respond in the right manner.
Well, thank you, Matthias. If you want to have any closing words for the panel.
I don't know, do we have any closing words? Do we have any insights that we need to tell these people before we leave the stage? Like, if you have only one sentence about co-working, what would it be?
One sentence about co-working. It's not about co-working, it's about community and the people in co-working.
Just keep networking, keep together, and if you are together, I think we have a good and bright future in co-working and co-living.
Okay, I mean, I can only add to this. So I think a little bit to the answer to your question from my side is we are trying to attract people that don't want to work in an office, right? So we need to be different than an office, and this is really important to understand that, yes, you can open a shared office center where companies rent small offices on a more flexible basis, but co-working is all about the community, so it's not about the experience of the office, but it's about the experience of the community.
Thank you, Matthias, Celia, and Christian. That concludes our co-working block. We will now take a 10-minute coffee break. I invite everyone to, it's probably still raining, but have a cup of coffee, stretch a bit, and see you back here in 10 minutes so we can continue talking about remote work. Thank you so much.
We create connections and build economies. Throughout our massive travel network and constant we build the critical solutions that can help your companies. We've been doing it for more than 10 years, and we're just getting started, innovating, developing, moving fast. What we do: consulting, strategic management, marketing and communication, digital, content creation, bits, annual sales growth of approximately 28% after 6 months, global and local exposure reaching unique traffic of more than 140 million people, more than 3.5 million industry-related user worldwide. SEO optimization, #1 Google rankings for local search, Integrated booking and ticketing solution. How does it work? Get a quote. We receive your needs and information about your project. Fill out a creative brief. We match you with our team of local experts. Collaborate in our powerful network.
Želite vidjeti nešto neočekivano? Očekujete saznati nešto novo? Vjerujete da znanje može promijeniti svijet? Ekskluzivni intervjui, vrhunski kolumnisti, premium video sadržaj, nagrađivani dokumentarci, jer uvijek ste u potrazi za najboljim. Mi također. Večernji list premium. Za one koji traže više.
We create connections and build economies. Throughout our massive travel network and constantly build the critical solutions that can help your companies. We've been doing it for more than 10 years, and we're just getting started, innovating, developing, moving fast. What we do: consulting, strategic management, marketing and communication, digital, content creation, bits, and your...
Hello and welcome back from the coffee break. I hope that you got energized and that you're ready for our last block of the conference. So I invite everyone to maintain our focus as we dive into the topic of remote work. Our first speaker will be Tomislav Capan, who is a technical consultant and software engineer who has been working remotely for the past 10 years. He loves to collaborate and improve software products, organize events, and occasionally publicly speak, which he will do right now, and his topic is remote work. Please, a big round of applause for Tomislav.
Ciao svima. Hello everybody. Thanks for coming to visit this conference, to see my talk among the others. When I hear this announcement, 10 years of remote work, I just realized 10 years of professional remote work for clients, but before that, since 2002 till 2011, I co-founded and co-owned an online music media business in Croatia, Muzika.hr, the portal before the portals existed with all the major media websites, Večernji list, Jutarnji list, what we have in Croatia. They didn't have online media presence at all. WordPress didn't exist. We started that as a remote thing. We were students using this spare time at university between lectures or after lectures finished, spending my time in the students club, I started developing a CMS solution for that. On the other side, my editor-in-chief was sitting at his home, also during his studies, publishing articles from the authors we had across Zagreb. Once we started working, he finished his studies earlier. He was spending time at his workplace, catching coffee breaks, again, publishing content on this online media while I was still studying, creating that software that supported it. So I had an opportunity to run my own company for 8-9 years in a remote fashion, which I didn't even realize back then, because a remote was not a thing at all. It was kind of our hobby project. That helped me a lot. The big crisis, 2009, 2011, hit the media hard, especially small independent online music media on a small market like Croatian. Music Hire was living off of advertising revenue, which crashed in 2009. So we had issues maintaining that as a sustainable business. Meanwhile, with the experience gained through that, finishing my university, I realized there is a whole world of opportunities. Local IT in Croatia was small. Projects back then were pretty boring. Most of that were banks. Ericsson did some software development compared to nowadays, way less than today, and then system integrators, which is all boring for a software engineer who has seen the opportunities that the internet provides and who has seen what's happening in the world. The first fintech companies, health tech companies, all the startups in the Silicon Valley, the demand for people was high there, and the visa programs these countries had was problematic for them to bring people in. I had a dream of maybe moving to London. I liked the Last FM, which was a thing back then. I was considering that. In the meantime, what happened is the internet enabled me to get my clients to work for them from Zagreb, from my home place, without the need to move to an overcrowded city. Although I like London, I love visiting London every time. Living in London was expensive, still is. Living in London probably meant a different quality of life compared to a smaller city like Zagreb. And I decided to pursue this thing called remote work. Let's see if I can do that. September 2011, I got my first client. They were in Manchester, one startup that became a sustainable lifestyle business for the owner today. That was my first 9-month-long project where I entered this world, where I started learning how to do the work for somebody else instead of owning my own company, how to provide value for them, all remotely. Remote work tools, communication tools, instant messengers starting popping up around that time. Trello, Asana, software for managing tasks also started popping up at around that time. We leveraged all that in a small company of 2 or 3 people that worked nicely. 2 or 3 people in tech. There were salespeople and marketing, which were a different story. I was building this dashboard for this company, like front-end development work, talking with my customer weekly over those web conferencing tools, designing how it's supposed to look like and work. I coded it, he reviewed it, we iterated on that, and progress was happening. 9 months later, unfortunately, investors into that business wanted for that business to move in the northeast part of England because it's a part of some funding program to develop jobs in that part of England. Unfortunately, again, due to that visa thing I mentioned, I wasn't qualified to move to the UK, although we agreed, yeah, I'm willing to move if a visa can be issued for me. It turned out it couldn't have been. And then I moved to a second company, also Manchester, a friend and a partner of my first client. They have a business where they develop software for car dealerships to help them facilitate sales of used vehicles mostly, to calculate the credit rating for customers wanting to buy a vehicle to see if there is a finance plan that they can use to obtain that vehicle. This second client is actually the first time when I started seeing the value that the client has from this remote engineer on the other part of Europe? Because, of course, my first job was mostly trying to figure it out how it works, how to behave, how to develop, how to deploy, how to bring value. And it was kind of hectic in the first few months until I gained some experience. With this second client, what they told me when I joined them was, well, we have a local team here in Manchester. We don't do remote work. We don't know remote work. You've been working with that other company. You are here to teach us how to do it. Wow. Okay. That was kind of a challenge, but what I realized, they don't use written communication as in instant messengers, chats. They do the water cooler chats, having their meetings in the office. That's the first thing we needed to change to have me involved in the whole process. We needed to make an online meeting so we can see each other, we can speak, to be more friendly, visible. We needed to communicate a lot on Slack over just talking. So instead of bringing up a Slack call, Slack was a thing back then, sorry, not Slack, Skype was a thing back then. So instead of bringing up a Skype call, let's type it down in Slack. What's the benefit of that? I joined them for a week in Manchester around Christmas. They have a Christmas parties where they invite all their employees, including contractors. I realized company had in my team one contractor who was local there, sitting at the office, and I was sitting in Croatia. We all gathered in Manchester, spent a few days in the office, had that Christmas party and all that. But what's important, in the office, when we were speaking about how we work, what's happening, and now the difference when I'm in here, the other contractor noticed one important thing. Wow, we didn't even realize the difference you made by joining this team, that all communication is in written, which means we have a paper trail or a digital trail of who committed to doing what and when and by what time, and if there is any trouble, it was communicated. There is history which can be used to produce documentation, to see what was going on. All the things that are lost in verbal communication is kind of memorized in written communication. That's a big benefit for a company because they can produce documentation. At the same time, I had one job actually in Croatia after I graduated for 2 years. I got pinged from those people in that company. They had an ISO audit, and I introduced a wiki tool with that company to document what I was working on because I realized there was no documentation. They called me, oh, we had an ISO audit, and they used this wiki as a proof of a history of changes for the documentation for our products. They didn't even realize by introducing that tool into the company, they got a benefit of one of the requirements of an ISO audit, which is tracking changes in the history in the documentation. So that's another proof of how tooling that supports remote work can support other processes in a company, and how it may benefit companies without them even realizing the benefit that they will have. From the other side, usually when we talk about remote work, it's most often us remote workers bragging in a way how nice of a life we can have traveling around, working from everywhere. That's all nice. But let's see it from a perspective of a client, of a company you are providing services to. What do they benefit? How do they benefit of that? I mean, they sit in the office and you travel the world. They envy you, maybe. I don't know. They see you as a punker, just like fooling around rather than working. Maybe. I don't know. But those are all possible perceptions that you have. So what we need to do, we need to prove them the value by delivering things, by introducing these tools, which they didn't have before. We need to recognize the processes in a company which we can benefit even though we are remote. For me as a software engineer, it's quite clear. I have something to deliver. The software I deliver either works or doesn't work. If it works, I mean, it's quite clear that there is a benefit. What is important is with remote work, it doesn't need to be across Europe or across the world. It can even be in the same country. Journalists are an example of that. There is a headquarters in a capital, and then there are outposts in different cities. They have been doing their work pretty much remotely before we even knew how to do that work remotely as software engineers, because they were outside recording stories, sending these materials to the headquarters. That was a beginning, let's be honest. What we gained me sitting in Zagreb instead of commuting to work every day. I arrange my small office in my place where I live. No commute means less stress, means more free time, more quality time for myself, which means healthier life. I can organize myself a healthier life, which yields increase in productivity. Happy and satisfied people who are not stressed out, bring value to the client or to their employee if they're employed, but just having increased productivity. That's important for companies. Sorry. So we can think about that as a personal benefit, but also that's a benefit for the company. Challenges that organizations have, except for what we mentioned already, when adapting to remote work is asynchronousness. They're not used to asynchronous work. They're used to having everybody at a company, having meetings in person, all people together. What we bring is Slack communication, which is asynchronous by definition. I don't need the other party to respond immediately when I have something to ask. I, as a remote worker, and anybody else on the team, as a remote worker or working with a remote person, need to think in an asynchronous way, in a way you would put a question, asking for some kind of an explanation or describing what you intend to do on Slack, and the response may come in an hour, this afternoon or tomorrow morning. So you have to plan a little bit ahead. Don't put yourself in a position where you need an answer immediately, where you don't have the ability to wait a little bit to get that answer. Sometimes it happens. I mean, emergency is an emergency. You can, at mention, people get their attention immediately. But this way of just putting something on Slack and even organize a private co-working with your friends and peers, why not? The company, instead of investing a lot of money in super nice office building, which costs quite a lot, can move that money into providing the necessary working infrastructure for their workers, as in computer, nice monitor, ergonomic chair, whatever, for the space the remote workforce will do their work from, home office or a shared office or a co-working space. All those are the opportunities and possibilities for companies to embrace this new way, the future way of working, or maybe even today's way of working. The pandemic kicked that fast forward. Everybody needed to adapt. People were taking their monitors from the office to home. People were taking their computers, everything. So that movement started, and I strongly believe that that movement should continue, that companies could and should rethink their office in a way that it doesn't need to be their own building. It doesn't need to be visually supervising their workforce. They should build trust. They could reduce middle management for that and focus on what really brings the value for a company. And, well, to expand a little bit on that topic, I think we just have enough time. I would like to touch upon the more global perspective. Here, there are people who run co-working spaces, have the organizations who communicate with governments and local authorities and different institutions. Legal framework for all this is a bit complicated. Within the same country, at least in Croatia, I believe it's similar around here, we have laws that pretty much are problematic when it comes to your home office, because you need to have some standards that need to be satisfied for that workplace to be correct, even though those institutions don't have their workplaces done in a way the law requires. So what can be done? Talk to the institutions. Let's see if we can loosen up this legislation in a way that the work can happen from a remote office, as in a co-working. Let's have our laws more flexible. When we talk cross borders, what I needed to do is form my own company for one single reason, to be able to invoice, because it's way harder for a foreign company to formally employ me. It's very complicated. It can be done, but this is way easier. I can do B2B invoicing. That's simple. But then we have this law that says, yeah, if you work for a single company across undefined period of time, it can be employment. Yeah, that's a problem. I try to change my clients or to have something on the side occasionally because it makes me stay on top of my my work, my branch of software engineering. So I kind of use that as a vehicle to avoid those restrictions and to keep myself sharp and focused on what I do and the value I provide to my clients. But kind of a more regular type of person that just wants a job and do their work, this is something that we might consider tackling in the future. And this area, which wants to expand on digital, will need to learn in the upcoming years. Still, that is something, if we have more flexible laws like the digital nomad visa in Croatia, which Jan facilitated to happen, that allows people to come here to spend their money on the services. They need to live here, they need to go to hairdressers, they will buy the clothes, they will go to a restaurant, they want to have fun, going to a club, going to the movies, doing whatever people do when they live at some place for an extended period of time. That is where those people will spend money, where the government will collect their for us here in this region to do that. By having those people, as I explained, plenty of jobs can be done in that way today. I've been doing it successfully for 10 years. Let's have more people do that. Let's allow them to come and see this wonderful place. You can really enjoy Mediterranean climate at least 9 months a year, maybe even more. Let's have other people enjoy it as well. Do we have any questions? That would be all from me.
Hello. So thank you for your presentation. Like for these days, like we speak a lot about remote working, and like we tend to talk only about like positive sides of remote working. And through history, we have seen when we are changing the way how we work, like social changes are coming as well, and not small social changes. So what do you think, what could be like negative sides of remote working?
By introducing co-working and co-living. When you speak about society, it could be, in theory, if you had a single place where a lot of remote workers with higher income would come, yes, that might disturb the balance of the economy at that local place by raising prices, which can make it harder for the local people to follow that. But on the other hand, that allows opportunities for local people to develop their own businesses, supporting that crowd, let's call them crowd if it's a high population coming in to spend time at some place. That's happening in Bansko. So Matija started the co-working. He has over 300 people for a few weeks. Pardon, I need to eat somewhere, I need to have fun. Those are the opportunities which would make the local economy grow, which will make those people richer in the future as the time goes by. So I don't see it necessarily as a long-term negative. I can see it as an impact if the disruption happens like instantly, but it's never instant. You cannot start a co-working or a co-living space and have 1,000 people immediately. That business grows over years. Matthias has been doing it for 4.5, 5 years, something like that. Now he has this amount of members. So it's all about recognizing the opportunities to support those people coming in. Same as tourism. What did tourism do to Dubrovnik? Yeah, crowds of people. And then they needed to introduce some measures to counter that. You know, what we saw yesterday, only 2 cruisers per day just to save the city, which is completely reasonable, which will increase the price of docking, which will reduce the stress on Dubrovnik. So there is always about countermeasures to whatever is happening.
Okay, thank you. But on the other hand, like again, we spoke about upsides, and I think like here is the responsibility of people here that like we should broaden our thinkings, like what's going to be like impact of like not just local economy, but like in social in general. Like for example, I think many remote workers, like, and especially it's appealing to women, like to become remote workers, and some traditional jobs that were done from the office, there is a possibility now to do it like from your home. And we still live in patriarchal society, so usually still like women take care more of child and like do some other jobs. So for them it could be more appealing to work from home. And on the other hand, like not working in office and not working like with your team, that might, for example, like lead in less progress on like on your workplace. So I think this is just one like tiny piece of what could happen in the future, like with remote work. And I think like I'm calling like everybody here like to think more thoroughly like what could be the changes that will come that are not like that we even like maybe don't predict them now, but that could happen.
I completely agree with you that example you mentioned can be solved by hybrid work, so you can go to your office if it's in your own city. Remote work doesn't necessarily mean you are moving. I'm a remote worker. I still live in Zagreb. I just work from home, or I would like to have a co-working in my neighborhood. So if you are a mother with a child, the child will go to a kindergarten because you still live at your own place. It's just that your company is somewhere else, and you would either work from home, go to the co-working, so you would organize your day adjusted to having a child, which means the child spends a certain amount of time in a kindergarten. There's the time you work. It doesn't necessarily mean you need to travel. You can do remote work from your own.
Discussion. However, we have run out of time for this section, so we will continue. But again, at the end of this day, we will have time to connect and speak more. Thank you so much, Tomislav, for your talk. It is time for our last panel of the day. This time we wanted to bring the media in and see how remote work has affected not only the individuals but an entire industry. On this occasion, I will invite our moderator, Anđela Đokić, to join me on stage. She's a specialist in tourism management, focusing on digital marketing in tourism and other service activities by leading the Montenegrin part of My Guide Network, which is a network of travel online guides, while also running her private business, Fit Camp Montenegro. Anđela, will you do the honors of also presenting your panelists today? Well, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Tamara. Okay, hello everyone. Well, as Tamara mentioned, I'm Anđela Đokić. I am happy to share time with you today from the regional media in the region, from Bosnia and Herzegovina and Montenegro. And we will briefly discuss on how it affects. Before they join me to the stage, I would just go briefly through the timeline of media and how it actually affects of everything that we do. And in good, sometimes in a bad way as well, but media is all around. So even since the, eras like pre-industrial, back in 1700s, we had people leaving the drawing in the caves, then using some clays and stuff to leave the information for the next generations to come. After that, we had the period of industrial era that is coming after 1700s up to 1930s, where we are introducing slowly to something that we can call media that we have today, but not in a not in the regular, actually same sense. But this is the period of when Montenegro, I don't know if you know, but it's a fun fact, had the first printed book back in 1494, if I remember well. It was Oktoih Prvoglasnik, printed in Cetinje. So you can imagine that the Balkan region was quite impressive back then. America was just discovered, and we already had some books printed, so it's worth mentioning. After this, we had the electronic age coming up in 1930s to 1980s, and you can imagine it's all about radio, TVs, first personal computers, very basic ones actually, but that is something that actually affected the communication that reminds us of what we have today, because finally the old structure of the communication became to be different, and the wide range of media was affecting the whole planet. And today, the thing is that we are in the information age, and we do have access to the internet. We've changed a lot, actually, the media and how we see it and how we understand it. And then some obstacles. Okay. So welcome, and please introduce yourself to the audience. We can start with the lady. Sanela, give us information about yourself, what you do in your media, about your media, who is your audience, who you target, and who you communicate with.
So thank you so much for this invitation and participation in the cross-border co-working conference here in beautiful Budva. Hello to everyone. I'm working in marketing management of our media. So Avaz Roto Press is the biggest media house in Bosnia and Herzegovina. Our main product is our daily newspapers, Dnevni Avaz. Also, we have weekly and monthly editions and magazines and journals. Dnevni Avaz has the largest circulation in our country and selling places for around 4,000. Huge numbers of subscribers. The term Dnevni Avaz is on the third position itself on Google search after YouTube and Facebook in our country. So that says a lot. Our weekly publications are Azra magazine for women and family, and Express tabloid about also we have Avaz TV on YouTube channel, and
we are by far the biggest and most influential media in the country. And so to explain what is our audience is basically the whole Montenegro, everybody we can reach through both traditional means with the printed media and with the less traditional with our online edition, but we also pretty present in the region, basically to everyone that has any curiosity about local events in Montenegro. We try to cover basically everything that happens in Montenegro politically, socially, economic version of it. We are now limited mostly to what is our core business. Is we also have a printing house, so that's one of the way we finance ourselves, but our whole system and our values are basically centered into our original core product, which is the news, hard news. We are, that's what we are recognized for, and that's what we are trying to constantly improve upon, and everything else is basically on the side of it.
Okay, thank you. If I understood well, Avaz also has the printing house. So we are facing here a bit of traditional approach as well to the market, which in the Balkans is usually the case, because people still here are quite slow in accepting trends, and it's very interesting to have both of your sides here, because Bosnian would say that Avaz is the biggest media there. Yes. Not only Sanela and Almir, because I asked other people as well. And for VST, assuming that I'm from here, I can literally confirm what Srdan said. Now this is affecting also the whole region, because obviously something is happening in Montenegro or something is happening in Bosnia, people like to cross-read. Like cross-border, it's really like there, and the digital actually editions of what you do are helping a lot in reaching your audience. That's definite. So basically, absolutely, just go on.
A very specific situation for VST, for example, is that even though we operate primarily in a market that is 620 or 50,000 people, our competition is based, and we are competing with a market of 20 million people. That is basically on the same reading and speaking language. So for us, it's very difficult to apply any patterns that other media would usually apply, because it's not our newsroom. The size of our newsroom cannot be compared even to, I guess, Avaz's newsroom or Serbia, Croatia newsrooms. That operate in much larger market. But on a huge percentage of subjects and topics that we are covering, we are basically covering it on the same level of detail, so the same context that all the regional media are doing. So for Montenegrin media, it's quite challenging to be relevant in in the region when you compare the size of the market and then you apply it to the size of the newsroom. And I can add some later on that approach of yet traditional media and how we are slowly adapting on it.
That will for sure be interesting for everyone. But what I wanted to ask you next is actually how the digitalization affected your media, especially assuming, okay, VST founded in 1997, but Avaz is also around 30 years old, something like that?
2007.
2007, okay. So we had, both of the media are actually firstly printed media. And then later on we added this digital part or your portals that are now becoming more and more popular. I see a nice difference in between Avaz and VST here, not only what you mentioned, because this is something clear to everyone working from Montenegro. For us it's very difficult because this is a teeny tiny market. When it comes to media, it needs to be, I'm part of one travel media, and it needs to be wider if you want to do something with it. Otherwise, it doesn't make a lot of sense because it's too small to affect. So definitely, the advantage of speaking the same language in the Balkans and so on, it's also very important for media such as VST or anybody else from Montenegro. But what I wanted to add here is why and how the digitalization affected you. I mean, when is that you realized that you need to follow the modern trends? Mm-hmm. How it came when you started the Avaz portal?
Yeah, namely Avaz web portal started operating in 2007, conceptually and visually adapted to the needs of internet users, of course. And during these years, Avaz portal has developed and gained the trust of users, which number is close to 2.5 million. And that is, yeah, so we become, of course, we start to be one of the most read news portal in our region. Also, Avaz is available to our loyal users on via iPhone and Android applications, which number of users is growing every day. And yeah,
so it's also an app.
Yeah. And all our print editions are digitalized, and they have their own website. And of course, to not forget followers on social networks, Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Our Facebook, I think that's now about around 700,000 followers we have now, and we are very proud of these facts. That's it.
And people mostly come from Sarajevo region, or it's all around Bosnia?
All around Bosnia.
Okay, thank you. And when it comes to VST, when did you start with the portal?
Officially we started in early 2011. I think it was January. I spent my whole professional career with VST, and I just joined the team when they started the website. So I've been there. Are obviously mostly Montenegrin. Is, I guess, 3 or 4 times bigger than all the traffic coming from the browsers, because it's, you know, they're basically addicted to it, if you can say so.
You can say it so, because it's actually the generation structure, you know, and you know how it goes, because previously people in the older generations, they used to trust and look for traditional media. So you can still find some, people staying at home, usually retired people and stuff like that, doing TV stations a lot. They never enter to your website or any of other websites, while the younger generation, they are always on the go, always with the smart devices, so it's logical that this is increasing. And I believe that slowly the trends will show that the traditional media will only have a certain kind of prestige, while everything will be kept in digital. Of course, that is bringing us to the question that if we speak about VST in this particular example, you know that most of your traffic comes through your website and your application, and most of the actual actual issued numbers of the printed media are not that high because the market is small. So it brings the question that actually how the journalists work in VST. Do they work from home? Are you always in the redaction? How it works? Don't mind the pandemics now, just from a perspective of how it's the regular kind of setting in VST.
Well, pre-pandemic period was basically almost the same, well, almost in all aspects like it was 10 years ago, because of the nature of the work. I mean, unlike some other industries, you can't plan like 90% of the things that you are going to publish tomorrow is out of your plan and out of your control, at least on the major topics. So you cannot set up even a weekly plan and then be even 20% sure that you're going to publish everything what you have planned for, and then, you know, delegate assignments like you would do when you're working remotely, and you know, you don't need a constant communication on all of the elements, especially when you are working basically parallel to media, you know, working for the print and working for the online, and you need to constantly improve, constantly improvise, adapt, and so on. So pre-pandemic period did not affect the organizational structure of the media, but during the pandemic period we have learned that we could have done some things even before the pandemic. So we weren't necessarily forced into it. You know, we were basically now in the course of the events was such, but we could have done it before the pandemic if we have, you know, just went into it, investigated it.
Okay.
Yeah, so basically that's what.
But remote journalists, were they present actually pre-pandemic times? Were they working from home or all the time from the office? So this is something that you said that if you knew that is possible, you would change it, if I understood well?
Yeah, well, some elements or some parts of the newsroom prove that they are more efficient working from home, especially when we are talking about online. But the biggest improvement actually is not that much of a, was not as predictable as I would expect. For example, I mean, probably will sound funny, but the only thing that we have kept from the high pandemic period is that we kept our technical part of the newsroom that is working the printed edition, working the infographics and the visual part of our media. We kept them to work remotely because their job is more adaptable to it. But the biggest win that we got from it is that so essentially there are people from different industries, right? Mm-hmm. Designers and journalists. So there is always a clash of vision of how the product needs to look, and we have said a lot on them fighting because it's much more difficult to fight over Viber chats. You know, it's much more exhausting, much less effective. So it has been highly efficient for the past year, and then we decided, you know, let's keep you guys at home. You know, you're doing well.
You see, that's good to hear. What about others? Is there any journalists that are working from home permanently, or were they working from home before the pandemics? How it goes with you?
Well, basically, our company works 24/7, and that includes night shifts, mobility, and field work from home, and at the same time we have correspondence in whole our country and of course in whole world. So that means that the right information needs to be fast and in real time published. But according to the marketing sector, basically while we are here in conference 2 days and we are working all the time. So we are not at office, but we are having emails, Teams, and different applications. So we are working all the time, really.
Okay, yeah, this is actually what Tomislav said in his speech before us. It's not remote working only when you are traveling you are. The two of you are traveling these 2 days, but the same is for me. I'm from here, I live in Budva, and I'm remotely working from the conference these 2 days, so it's really like all the time. That is bringing the question actually how when we realize that we can do some stuff from home when it comes to the digital part of your media, how that affected actually the moment when we realize that we are entering the pandemics, when the quarantine started, when everything happened, what happened. How did you fought with this? How did your media cope with the situation? What did you do? Were there any changes? You can continue from the Ava's point of view if you want to. It's really interesting to hear what changed. What was the switch? Have you felt it really?
Yeah, the year 2020 was a big challenge for the whole world, and of course it was very necessary to organize effective work for everybody. And conditions and rules that we receive from our health and government institutions need to be, respected and followed. We are happy that we have enough office space to be separated, and of course enough human resources who can respond any measures and rules in that situation. And big challenge for us was distribution of our newspapers, because many selling places was closed, but that didn't disturb our production and printing schedule. The print version of Dnevni Avaz and other editions never stopped to be produced, and every day during the corona and lockdown, and that's it.
That's good to hear, because it was not always possible to do it from the printed point of view. But assuming that you are the biggest media in Bosnia and Herzegovina, it must be the fact that you have a lot of actually people who are into your lists and maybe are getting Dnevni Avaz daily. So this is something that you can count on besides the distribution places that you are having, like kiosks and other shops and stuff. So that's good, and the machinery that's confirming what you said, Srdan. They are coming from a bigger market, and it's a big team and it's a big structure. So it must be easier to organize some things compared to us here in the Montenegrin market, which is slightly different. But what happened with you? How it affected you during the pandemics? What happened with Vijest?
Well, the biggest challenge was to make an organizational change that would allow us, for whatever happened and how many, if the COVID entered the newsroom, and then if it starts to spread, how it would be organized so we limit it to a point where we can produce on the level that we are used to producing when we are on the maximum capacity that we have. So and really a huge percentage of things that we do are not possible to do from home. So we need to go out in the field, go out to the point, to the scene of the event and see what's going on, and especially because it was essentially an uncharted territory for the media in the world, not only in the Balkans. So basically a learning curve was there, but learning curve that nobody can help you with, because nobody has experienced it before. So there was no default or any solution that you could borrow from somebody and then use it. So basically it was, the cohesion within the newsroom was essential to really understand, what's our role in the society at the moment, how big it is, and it was from home. So it was then also very, very challenging to for them to follow up and keep up.
That's very good to understand how media can actually adopt the trends, because you saw the necessity from the market that they need you, they need your support. I would say that without media, some things wouldn't have been up to date, very clear to how it's communicated, which sometimes the institutions have the language that the wide audience doesn't understand, so media jumps in. But the responsibility definitely needs to stay high, because we know what media can do, and we know how it affects the general audience. Just for the end, because we need to finish quite soon, next people are on. What is actually now the affection? What happened? What is the consequence of the pandemics, and how it affected your structure? Is there any change in your structure, and is there anything new that you do that you didn't do before?
Well, during this, I mean, the pandemic is not over yet, so yeah, we are still, still learning and still seeing how it works. But what we have learned in the past year and a half, especially when you consider that Montenegro had not one crisis related to pandemic, but the whole, basically, shift of the paradigm with the first political change and events that preceded the change was, followed up with the pandemic. So overall, it has really been challenging. But the things that we have learned is really that there are a lot of things you can really efficiently do if you just give up on the idea that the old traditional way is the only right way to do things. And then if you are open to try stuff, then and especially when you have a pattern that you can follow up on, even if you borrow it from different industries, then it really can improve the efficiency, which is really the thing that we are mostly looking for, especially when you are working with the limited capacity. So basically, any percentage of the improved efficiency you can get is really very visible on your final product, and that is news.
Okay, thank you. And how about Avaz? What happened with you? What was the change in the structure, if any, and how the remote work affected you during the
Of course it was. Well, remote working process was totally adapted, especially when we are talking about in marketing sector, when we are talking about Zoom meetings, Skype and other applications. So we already use Teams applications from the beginning of Corona, also today. So also our journalists and all employees were connected to their office computers from their private computers and from their home, and there was no big difference in quality and productivity of their work.
That's good. Yeah. Thank you. Are there any questions, maybe? Okay. Then I think it's all quite clear. Tamara, you can take over. Thank you very much. It was nice having you here, and thank you for all the experience that you shared with the audience. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for giving us an insight on how the media in the region is going through all of these changes with us. Now it's time for us to be closing our conference with the last 30-minute talk. You can call it a cherry on top. We saved Edo Sadikovic as the last speaker. Edo co-founded a super interesting project in Spain and is developing another one in Portugal. And this is what he will be telling us about in our last talk of the day and of the conference. So let's give one final push and an applause to Edo Sadikovic.
Hvala, Tamara. Do you have a village? Maybe your grandparents' village? So if you do, please, I invite you just to think on it for just a second, because today I'm going to speak a bit about how we can return to villages by using technology, innovation, and education. I'm going to speak a bit about rural co-working and co-living spaces, and how powerful actually it is when you install one of these spaces in the middle of nowhere. But actually I'm going to speak about what happens when you bring people who work something online and when you mix them with a mountain, and what occurs there. My name is Edo Sadikovic. I'm originally from Prijepolje in Serbia, which is on the border with Montenegro and Bosnia. And in 2012, I went to live in a village. So in my school, I remember I was the only one in my class that didn't have a village. And now I think I'm the only one who lives in the village, while everyone else is in the escaped to the cities. I live in a so tiny village where there is only 20 inhabitants, 20 inhabitants from 70 to 90 years old. And I want to paint a picture how tiny it is. When I was coming here, we came with a two-hour drive to Porto, where I took a flight. And instead of seeing other cars on the street, we ran onto 2 wild boars and 1 fox. So it's like so far. But even though there, right now, there is like I think more than 20 digital nomads from all over the world who came there to work. They didn't exist in the world, so we were lucky to be pioneers, but we were also were people who would experiment and maybe fail in a lot of experiments until we figured out what works and what doesn't. In our space, until now, we hosted more than 3,500 people from all over the world, from more than 55 nations. People, for example, from Netflix, they come to draw series for Netflix, or from Google, from Disney. A lot of creatives come there, but even like people from Google, from engineers from Google, from Boeing, from this kind of company, from UNICEF, they come there to work online. So not just programmers and developers. Now everything changes. Architects, lawyers, even we had a guy last year, Daniel from Germany. He loves sausages. So his job is to make homemade sausage, and he sells recipes. He makes from 3,000 to 5,000 euros on selling recipes of sausages. He's a big fan of this, so he makes nice studio with YouTube, and that's his job. So he comes to Sende, he produces his videos and works. So we got to discover so many new businesses, and we got to discover that almost anything can be translated in the online work. And now people choose where they are going to live from. If you ask today people if they would like to work from the city, from the mountain, from the seaside, I don't know how many people would choose cities. Okay, so it's like we were lucky to witness this new trend, and now it's going fast. I would say thanks to Corona. Sende is also social business because we try to buy locally, we try to hire locally, and we try to think for locals and maybe bring a bit of these brains who come to Sende to maybe to contribute to our village. I will just share a few photos. My presentation may be a bit broke because of the fonts when we changed to PowerPoint, but doesn't matter. So what we did there, we bought old houses. We started with only 2 old houses. They were very cheap. So I finished university with my partner Maria. We went there and we bought 2 very cheap houses. They were like these old Galician stone houses. So it's just like it's located on the border with Portugal. From we open the window, we see Portugal, and usually in these houses, animals would be living down, and people would be living up. And then we started buying, and today we started with 2 houses, and today we have 7 houses. We bought this year 2 more, and also we are starting another Sende. Now we are opening in Portugal, also in a village near Lisbon. So life in Sende is kind of full of constant contrast. Basically, in one moment we are having meeting with Mozilla, discussing about the future of internet. Then we open co-working, we go down, and then there is a neighbor Otilia who comes from the garden, and she speaks about how deer entered her garden last night and eat all the lettuces. So it's kind of for me that's kind of brilliant and beautiful contrast, but also contrast that kind of bring us back to the earth, no? And so it's like we are co-living there, but also co-living with 20 neighbors, and 20 neighbors that we take care of, and then take care of us. Our spaces are very basic, very simple, and we try also to bring very simple people there, people who we can learn from. So basically, all the spaces when we started, now we have 2 co-working spaces. This is one of them, and this was old place to keep dry hay for animals, and then we never took any credit from any loan from the bank. Only thing that we did is that we make money, we buy one house. We make money, we put isolation. We make money, we put new windows, and everything was built like this. So this is one of the views on Portugal from Sende. Business of co-living space is not renting rooms. It's not renting rooms, and our business is actually to combat the loneliness of digital nomads. So these people are traveling the world, but they have money, they have passports, but they don't have friends. So our job is to, when they come there, to give them a safe space where they can actually find friends, where they can work on their projects for their clients, on their businesses, but also where they can have friends. And one of the best tools that we use for friend making is the kitchen and the food. So it's so important part of, because there is no, for example, where we live, there is no shops. There is no shops. We have these mobile shops that are coming. So we buy a lot of groceries, and every day someone cooks. Today, 2 of us are cooking for everyone, but tomorrow 2 other persons. So every night we have like gourmet big meals where everyone wants to show off what they cook, and we get around the wine and we eat like 3 hours long dinners and speak, chat, and this is where this like bonding happens. So when our main onboarding, like welcoming part of process, when people are coming to Sende, they come, they leave their luggage in the room. They come in the kitchen, we give them 1 onion, 1 knife, 1 beer, we put music, and they start chopping onion, and they meet like 10 persons in the 10 minutes. And now if you go alone to Madrid, probably you will have 0 friends unless you have some old friends in Madrid, and that's the difference. So that's the reason why people come to co-living space, and it's all about community. So it's all about community, because every time when someone speaks about co-workings or co-livings, this is like overused word, so used that even it's boring to mention it. But community is not just people who are there, not just our client. Community is also our online community who follows us and who helps us online. But community also are our neighbors, our family, and all our friends who are around us. And in order that our space works, we need to build also community of people who are going to come, but also to run the space, to survive there for 1 month. We need a very nice community. So we are always thinking, I'm kind of obsessed to observe what people do, where they sit when they come, why they use one terrace and not another, where they came from, why they choose Sende, why they didn't go to other space. But also I'm thinking like how we can hack or how we can engineer behavior so they can on their own make community without community managers. Community managers are super important for one space, but it's very difficult to find pros and good like human people who will run community. So what we are now engineering is the process where community, where our clients are running the community. And we realize that what works for us is that we bring 30% of we block 30% of the spots for people who already stayed in Sende. We have one WhatsApp group where we organize like dinners, lunch, talks, excursions, or whatever. And so I'm measuring like how much I work is like how many messages I need to respond on this WhatsApp group. Less is better. And now we engineered that I need to respond maybe 1 per day or 0 per day, because community who was there in Sende before, they are doing this for us. And then I told this to Tamara the other day in the hotel, and she told me like, that's what my mom does in in kindergarten. She's in kindergarten teacher, and so she has very rebellish 6 years old, and so she puts 6 years old to take care of 3 years old, and then they completely change their behavior and they start to be very responsible. So it's kind of the same thing. When you work with co-living spaces, when you work in this digital nomad world, in this market, please have in mind that you are dealing with highly educated internet people. So these are people who are already smart, that in 2020, 2019, 2021 to travel the world and make money while traveling the world. And so when they want to go to buy your service, or when they go to your space, what are they going to do? They are going to research. They are going not just to research to see your website. They are going to see your social media. They are going to see profiles of your clients. They are going to see who found it. They are going to see Instagram of the founder. They are going to see Twitter of the founder. So this is a whole like context of research, because they need to think before where they're going to spend 2,000 euros, where they're going to spend 1 month of their time. Then they need to think, if is it safe there? Am I going to die there? They need to think like they need to also to think like on personal growth. And are they going to learn something there? And especially if they come to the village in the middle of nowhere, then they need to think even harder. So like your marketing actually is like this pure honesty, where you share what you do, and in super honest way. Okay, so when we manage one co-living space, when we try to manage it. It's often not so easy, because when we deal with people, we deal with a lot of cultures. So right now we have maybe no one is from the same country right now in our village. So there could be some conflicts. There could be conflict with the neighbor. There could be conflict around. So like managing is like I don't know if you played this game. Maybe some of you played the game like Football Manager, no? Where you can where you are football manager, you have your team, but you need to make happy your players, you need to make happy your fans, and you need to make happy your manager. And often you cannot make happy everyone, no? So what you do, like there is this constant making decision where you see what is more important, what is heavier, and you just take the decision. So for example, let's say that we had a few parties there, and then neighbors cannot sleep. So we need to decide: shall we turn off the party at 12 o'clock and make neighbors happy, or shall we like continue until 6 and make our co-livers happy? So it's kind of decision, like it's not easy. So what we do, for example, okay, we shut down the party because we appreciate our neighbors. We'll be there for maybe 40 years, and we explain. And then next morning maybe we speak and we start party earlier, or move party somewhere in the forest. But these are like kind of small decisions that are super kind of long-term strategic decision, because in this football manager also maybe the coach will say to their players, okay, you have day off to be with your family, players will be happy, but you will not train today, then tomorrow they lose the game, then fans are angry. So in that moment he decided not to make fans happy, but maybe they will win the champions on the long run. So this is what I learned also coming from Prijepolje in my end, for example, and here in Balkan, our Balkan mentality from this region is that people worry so much. They all the time worry. For example, my two ends, they wake up, I think, and they say, what I'm going to worry about today. And it was very difficult for me to unlearn this, to unlearn this, to remove it from my mind, because it's kind of very unhealthy, stressful. But I think I kept a bit of it, and I kept only a bit of it because it's very also handy when you run a co-living space, because before you do some event, before you introduce something new, what we do is like we think, okay, what are neighbors going to say, what are co-livers going to say, and how this can be developed. So when you run a place like this with a multicultural group of people, with a lot of people, international people, it's very difficult to hire a person who will know how to manage conflict, who will understand culture, who will understand someone from Turkey, from Arab countries, someone from Finland, and who will understand them at the same table. So this is still a challenge for us to find proper persons, but it always was better not to hire a 10-star student who had all the good grades, never went out from the room. Then it's much better to find maybe ex-volunteer who traveled the world, who was traveling, learning, traveling, and just experiencing. And usually this person is much better choice for this kind of business. In Centar we also do events, so it's not about just hosting people. We do events, usually events that are a bit weird to be organized in the rural. That means that events that are usually seen in Madrid, in Barcelona, and not even in the smaller towns. So for example, this year we organized a festival which was called Bit Somar, and it was a video gaming festival which brought in industry leaders of the video gaming from Spain, and we organized 7 days event where people would with concept artists, with art directors, with developers, with all these kind of people, programmers, all these kind of people who are working in the video gaming industry. This was success. Even for the first one, we sold out everything just because all the time we try to use this kind of what I call culture marketing. Maybe my favorite type of marketing. This is our neighbor Antonio, and this is killing me a bit because it's broken. All the letters are broken. So this is our neighbor Antonio, where we organize in his home every Sunday. We organize vermouth, where we drink a bit of wine. We make chorizos around 12, and then we go for a lunch. And during the event, he was wearing Oculus and he was playing this game. So this kind of when I say cultural marketing that works for us is when we organize non-stop. We market Centar with the cultural contrast. No, we see what works. What is the cultural contrast of context of one area or of a group of people who are following us, and then we slap them with the counter narrative which no one would expect. So when you organize video gaming event in the village in the middle of nowhere, of course everyone speaks about you. When we were starting this in 2013, we were all over the news because no one could believe the journalists couldn't believe that someone will organize like kind of hipster space in their grandparents' village. So this kind of marketing is super beneficial for us because it saves us in marketing, because other people just want to share about you when you organize this kind of event. So all our events that we organize are only very, very kind of even controversial in the area where we live, and I think that's why we managed to sell them. Now co-living becomes very ugly industry, no? A lot of big players, centers with a lot of millions, and it becomes not about community people, it becomes about real estate, no? So what they do, they buy buildings in the center of the city, they make it cool, make it hipster, they kick out, gentrify everything, and then sell out the building. So, and that's the only aspect, angle of the industry that they see. But what they should also see is that all these people who come to stay at our place, who become friends with us, all this today is the big war in the talent market in the world. It's very difficult to find good talent. It's very difficult to hire. It's very difficult to find programmers, and it's very difficult to find good creatives. And for example, now we are thinking in Centar to start our mini agency where we would hire people from even who are coming from these kind of companies because they would like to work with us, because they spend 1 month with us, they become friends, they eat our food, they trust us, and these people usually have money. Money is not problem. What these people now need is purposeful projects. When we tell them about our social projects, they want to join. They want to join even for free, and this is something that you cannot hire them. They are already hired by the best, so you cannot there is no way how you can take them out unless they trust you, unless they join some of the social projects. So I think that there is the big opportunity in thinking and working with talent in this world, and not just in the real estate. In Galicia, in Italy, in Greece, in Balkans, there is huge problem with abandoned villages. So next village from us, they have 2 inhabitants. Another village has 15 inhabitants. Another village is completely empty. So this is what happens is that houses are just broken, are just ruined. Even though they are super cheap, they are disappearing. And so it's very powerful when you put people inside of the house get renovated, house get alive. We spend, for example, our average group from 3,000 to 6,000 euros just on the groceries in the local shops, in the restaurants, in the grocery, because we almost cook every day. Sometimes we go to restaurants, but in the area, we spend around 6,000 euros per month just for the local. So this is small money for in a city, in one neighborhood, but for a village, this can save completely one village. We probably make 3 times more for our shop than they were making before. So just by putting co-living in one space, it can make a miracle, like a economical and cultural miracle. We organize this kind of event, cultural events. We organize concerts there also, sometimes just for digital nomad, sometimes just for events, but a lot of cultural things is happening because all these people who are coming, I will repeat again, they are kind of creative, they are brains who can just bring a good to the village. So that's why we here, for example, this conference, maybe we come to idea that, but we would like to scale our idea. So we are building the program which is called Download Sende, which will be for free, and anyone can download it and install Sende in their village, because we are going to explain our how we do it, and what we learn in these 8-9 years, what works, what doesn't work, and how people can apply it. In Sende, we also build a lot of small businesses. I think in the future, our concept will be completely free. We want to bring a lot of talents to Sende, and we are not going to charge them for a stay. They will be there for free, and probably we are going to live from all the projects that are born there. This is one of them. Our newest project is called Village Nomads, and Village Nomads is we are trying to deconstruct what these digital nomads do. Basically, we sit with them. We see like what does Ivan does on his laptop when he opens, where he types, and how he actually makes money from his specialty, like digital nomads. Then we translate this in very simple words in tutorial and share it to people. For example, for a lot of people want to stay in the village. A lot of people doesn't want to escape the villages, but they need to go to Barcelona, they need to go to Roma, they need to go to Podgorica to find the work, even though they like their village. Okay, so we are kind of trying that to put village nomads to educate these people with skills of real people who are already doing something, and just share it. And this is another project we are doing with Sun & Co, 9 Co-Living, Sundesk from Morocco. And during the last year, we will soon launch it. It will be called Livotto. And point of Livotto is that we are joining founders to explain what actually is good co-living, how co-living works, because there is a lot of these new co-livings coming that are not actually co-livings. They are just called co-living just because it's now hype. They want to sell their beds, and so part of this will be like education for people entering in the co-living world to get educated by people who actually run spaces that are working and spaces with community. What works for us is our Instagram. Like Instagram is super powerful, and not post but Instagram stories. What we try to do is in Instagram stories to share what's happening there, to document life of Sende, and it works very well, like economically. And even though we have only 6,000 followers, if we, for example, I was telling yesterday to Strahinja and Philip that we had 9 cancellations for some reason in June, which was very weird because COVID, some countries were closed, and we published one story with like I think 5 slides, and we sold 9 tickets. You can translate these 9 tickets in maybe 5,000 euros, and because stories are super powerful and they are not fake. So what is good about stories is that people, when they investigate about Sende, they see what's really is happening there. There is no makeup. There is no. They can just see it's like the neighbor on the window watching what's happening in the street. So these are the like new modern stories today. For us, this works very well. And if you have these kind of spaces, I would ask you to maybe check about this. You can find me on Instagram here, Edo Sadikovic, on LinkedIn, where I speak mostly about co-living space, and where I try to share a lot what we know, so other people maybe could could build the same space, and maybe like our friend who wants to build a co-living space, to use download center to build co-living space in her village in Namibia, because literally we can change one village with one of these kind of spaces. And it's not always about money, it's about much greater thing, like one impact that can bring to one place, and it's amazing. And to close down before questions, I just want to tell you that to remember inflation in Serbia. When was inflation during Yugoslavia, okay? When we often think on villages only when there are ugly times in the world. No, inflation in Serbia, with this pile of money you can buy 3 eggs. Who had food in the home? Only people who had villagers and who were growing food, no? Then bombing, when was bombing, people were living in the basements, but who had a village escaped to the village, okay? When it's coronavirus, who had a village wasn't locked in the place. Sender was working last year and this year during Corona, because everyone from even though co-working didn't work, co-working and co-living worked, because people wanted to escape the village, cities, and come to the village and stay safe there. So I know that we are thinking about villages only when hard time comes, but I also think now that now it's the best time ever to think maybe to invest, not to ruin villages, but to come back to village, maybe to repair old house, to bring internet, and it's that simple, and just to do what you do, but from under the tree. Thank you very much, and if there is any questions, please. So my house where I live was 1,500 euros. Another one that we bought was 6,000 euros. Because these stone houses, which are basically, if you cut and paste my house in Vigo on the coast, 1 hour and a half from us, it would be maybe 300,000 euros. But stone houses in our context in Galicia, they symbolize poverty for these people who were born and raised there. So now they all left to Switzerland, to Germany. They came back and they built these huge ugly houses, and now the cool ones are kind of for free. So we also raised a bit market there, but which is normal. But there is so many like houses that can be repaired. Even here in the Balkans, I always go to these web pages like Olix and in the Bosnia, in Croatia, in Facebook Marketplace, just to see like houses, because here also nature is so beautiful, and these kind of projects are, I know they work, and then just I think smart people should work on this. Just like escaping the smog from Sarajevo, from Belgrade, in half an hour you are in the super nice mountain, and everything is cheaper there. To have a car in the village is cheaper, to have a house is cheaper, you have nice air, you have food. And I always say that people come to Sende because of this kind of creativity, because when you open the window in your city, you see kiosk, you see restaurant, you see discoteca, you see taxi, you see Uber Eats. Then you open and you see apartment that you need to pay. So then you say, okay, I need to work to pay all of this. But when you open in the village a window, nothing. You see mandarina, you see fig tree, you see potato, you take it for free and you just eat it. And it's like this kind of thing, I think it's super good for creatives, because it liberates. When people are free, they are creating. When people are mentally blocked, they don't create. It's quite kind of commonsensical. Any more questions?
Thank you, Edo, for this great lecture. Question is about infrastructure for village, like you presented for Sende, like roads to get there, internet. Was it difficult to arrange that?
Yes, internet, yes. But we publish one of the texts that will be part of Download Sende on our blog. We made some crazy thing to bring internet there, and now we shared everything how we did it. Like for quite cheap, we had 200 megabytes download almost, and it's like faster than in Germany. But because we also community helped us, we brought so many smart people there. Then they say us, hey, you should use this point-to-point antenna. Then you should do it your fiber optics, not their blah blah blah. But basically, we have rented internet in totally another village. We are paying internet somewhere in a faraway village, and then we project it to our home, and it works. So, and we were lucky also at our village in Spain. It has roads, it has sewage, it has public light. That's quite good about Spain, because village is in like middle of nowhere. When I came there, I couldn't believe that kind of village there is asphalt. But also doesn't matter. People who are coming to us, we are filtering people who are coming to us. These are curious people. They are people who don't want to go to Belgrade, Sarajevo. They already seen the world. They travel the world. They are people who want something more. They want to relax. They want maybe a bit more intellectual talk, and they want curiosity. So even though if you live like in the 3 kilometers of Macadam Road, they will climb. Don't worry. Weirder the better.
Well, thank you, Edo.
Thank you very much.
And that concludes our conference. I would just like for you to stay with me for another minute. So I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who's come and participated. But also it's important to mention that the conference was funded by the EU through the Two Code project within the Interreg IPA CBC program in Croatia, Bosnia, Herzegovina, and Montenegro. One thing that I don't think we put enough light on are the organizers of this conference. They're pretty humble people. They've been working really hard. I know that you had a wonderful experience. So I would just love for all of the organizers of this conference to just rise so we see them. Just stand up, please. Anyone who's been involved in organizing of this conference, for a big applause. Thank you. And if you can just stay, keep standing for us for just a moment. I would just love to ask all of the speakers, all of the moderators, and all of the panelists to also rise, and just to give them as well a big round of applause. Please, anyone who's been on this stage yesterday and today, thank you so much. Please keep standing for us. If you are a part of any of the partner organizations in Nikšić, Tuzla, Mostar, or Zadar, I would also love for everyone from these partner organizations to stand, just so we see the faces of the people who are also involved in this community. Please keep standing. And if yesterday and today, if you heard at least one talk, one sentence that made you think, that you discussed with someone afterwards, please stand as well. If anyone has had that experience, this is wonderful. I think that we have everyone standing here, which is a wonderful way for me to say thank you. It has truly been my pleasure. Now you can slowly proceed, have lunch, and say our goodbyes. Thank you so very much.